Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to well, probably a very spicy and fiery show here today.
Yeah.
Dutch, man,
Yeah.
what is happening in the community, man? It's crazy out there. It's crazy out there. But we will discuss everything. But first, let me welcome, of course, our awesome communities. We're co-streaming again, so shout out to both. Great to see you guys in the chat. We are excited that you're gonna share this day with us because there's probably a lot to talk about here. But Dutch, how have you been, my man?
I've been well. Yeah. We intentionally didn't do a show last week for ourselves because we didn't have any further updates. So we thought, you know what it is, we'll leave it until we get official word and then we'll talk about it. And for yourself, of course, you were very unwell, so opted to stave off that show as well. So we have a nice week off, no podcasting, and today is the day where they officially speak up. So then we will talk. But otherwise, I've been good. I finished Final Fantasy 16 and Echoes of the Fallen. Echoes of the Fallen was much shorter than I thought, but it was good. It was a nice extra little side bit to it. We'll get into what we've played properly, but that's what I've been doing. I've also jumped back onto Alan Wake 2 and started that again from scratch, but I also managed to get into 4 chapters of that. In one stream, so I did quite a chunk of that as well. The music, by the way, some of the soundtrack to Alan Wake 2 is sublime. I've got a favourite song from it already, so I'm looking forward to talking about that a little bit.
Good.
And I've got a couple other games I need to try and squeeze in as well after Alan Wake before Rebirth.
And I'm gonna put one on your playlist.
It's you know what it is, Boxy. It was there beforehand, and I kept seeing it, and I kept seeing it, and then. Of course, ACG, as we know, awesome reviewer. He's always very methodical. He's always telling the truth, but very good reviews. And he's recommending it. And I've seen many things about it. We'll talk about the game we're talking about soon. But it looks fantastic. It definitely intrigues us, but it's Focus Home Interactive again.
Absolutely. They've been on fire, honestly.
They've got another one coming out as well, Flintlock, Siege of Dawn.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that this is published by Focus Home until a week ago or so. And Flintlock, I think they said somewhere middle this year or so. But yeah, right now, let's just get right into it, man. And start the podcast with the games we've been playing. Let us know in the chat what you guys have been playing. You can also vote, of course, what gameplay you're gonna want to see before we going to do the watch along of the Xbox podcast. That Banishers. We're talking about Banishers. I was on the fence with this because I thought, like, massive open world action RPG, you know. Should I squeeze that in between Suicide Squad, which I actually finished, and I put in a lot of time already in the end game as well. So, but I'll get to Suicide Squad in a second. And so I wasn't sure whether to get Banishers. And then I thought, oh, well, I have another 2 weeks till Final Fantasy Rebirth comes out. So, of course, I can squeeze that in. And it is completely different than what I expected. I was more thinking, this is probably, open world game, like your massive action RPGs, which it isn't. And it is a very unique one. It reminds me of Tomb Raider. Meets A Blake's Tale. Good.
It's a good mix.
That's like, and that in a setting, it plays in the years 79, and you have this English, what's that called? Elizabethan English kind of vibe setting. The ye old English kind of vibe. And it is a very linear game with like open aerials at some point, and it reminds a lot with the campfires. Remember the campfires from Tomb Raider, where you sit down and then you can upgrade your stuff, but it is a very linear game, yeah. But you have to do a lot of hard choices, and the writing and the story is awesome, absolutely awesome. Like I was completely surprised. I did not expect this quality of storytelling. It's an amazing story about the Banishers. They are basically like, I don't know, people that send ghosts that stay on Earth back to the heavens, or banish them forever in oblivion. So it's like, and you are this couple, and something happens at the very beginning, and it is, and then you basically play that couple, and you have to make really hard choices in the quests you do. Like you would absolutely love it. It's like there's the best of A Blake's Tale meets the best of Tomb Raider, in an absolutely unique setting. Beautiful game. You can still tell it's AA, but honestly, I'm like 5-6 hours in now, and I'm really, really digging that game. Highly recommended. Highly recommended so far. And it's actually,
I was just saying as well, aside from that, it's we were just mentioning Focus Home Interactive have been absolutely nailing it recently with the amount of like really good quality AA games that they've been pumping out. And it's been consistent. Like last year was the same, the year before was the same. We've got Banishers now. We've got Flintlock Siege of Dawn coming out soon. That looks absolutely fantastic. I've been waiting for that for a while.
Focus is really putting money and effort into the games they publish. This is obviously a don't not a game. And it is just along this line of Focus Home in the interactive games that try to really get to that AAA level, and they are doing a wonderful job. This is the best donut game probably just yet, just in terms of like production quality, you know. Obviously it depends on taste, whether you like vampire or not or whatnot, but in terms of like production quality, they are almost there. If it wasn't for the like sometimes clunky looking, you know, animations and character models, you can tell with the facial animations, it's really not AAA budget. But other than that, bro, it is like absolute stunning production quality. It's only $60 also, not an 80 euros.
The beginning to Focus Home and begin to become one of my favorite AA publishers, as it were, at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I literally can't knock them. Like everything that's been publishing recently has been really, really good quality.
Yeah.
And good games, just generally good games.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Finger crossed to keep it up, because I think they're really, I would say at the moment, probably underappreciated. I think they've been doing a fantastic job.
Couldn't agree more. Shout out to Drawnty J, who sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. And he says, I bought Skull and Bones. Great game. Are you guys going to stream the Xbox podcast or no? Yeah, listen, yes. Dutch. He's not the only one. I've seen a couple of people buying that game, playing it on Twitter, and posting great things about it on Twitter. I know you had your experience in the alpha, but
and beta.
Oh, and beta, but the guys that do play it actually seem to enjoy it, man. And
Jez has got the same feeling as me. Jez played it for 3 hours and said he was bored to death.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just saying. I haven't played it yet.
It seems like a game that is literally, you will hate it, but you will like it. There is no real in between. You're either going to hate it or you're going to like it. There isn't like I'll play this for a bit. It's very slow off the grind. There's a lot of grind fest. There's a lot of fetch quest missions. There's no island combat. There's really no walking around. There's load screens between island and ship. There's just a lot of dull stuff, and I've got better games to be spending my time with. That's how I weigh up, and this is me when I go into a game. It's not whether or not I can slog through games if I want to slog through games just to see if they get any better. But when there's so many games out and coming out, and that I have to get through that are of better quality, like Alan Wake 2 at the moment, I'm going through.
Which is a fantastic game.
Absolutely. Rather play Alan Wake 2 than dive into to that.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. It's like games have to justify your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's far better games at the minute for me than Skull and Bones.
Listen, that is the most important part. Games have to value your time, and not every game is for every gamer. And so we all have to manage. We only have limited time. Everyone only has limited time to play games, and so we have to set our preferences there. But to a second question, of course, we're going to co-stream the Xbox podcast as soon as it's going to drop. We discussed pre the show that we are not going to talk over the podcast, so you will hear the full podcast, like no comments from our side. We're going to mute ourselves. And then you guys can just enjoy the podcast, listen to what Phil, Matt, and Sarah have to say, and then we will automatically, of course, discuss it right after, along with you guys. So yeah, just stay in here. We discussed this also before the podcast. There is no link just yet to the actual podcast. So if anyone in the chat finds like a link to the actual podcast, just let us know. Drop it in the chat so we can definitely be the first ones to watch this here together. It's gonna be a great discussion, man.
Yeah.
And then
otherwise, what you'll hear us doing for this is we'll both load up the video, we'll pause the video. I think it's just going to be a video upload because all of them have subtitles on. So we'll upload it, we'll start it, pause it, we'll essentially synchronize ourselves to a 1, 2, 3, and then we'll start the video at the same time. So both channels will be at the same position. So don't worry about that. We'll be ready to rock and roll.
Exactly. We will have everything up as soon as it is up. Pyromat sends in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 14 months now, which is absolutely awesome. And he says his obligatory monthly Play Cassetta Beasts mention. And I still have not played it, Dutch. Neither have you.
Beast is a good game, mind. I've played probably the first 2 hours. I do need to get back to it. I do. It's one of those things that I have installed actually. So I explained this, I think, about a month or so ago. The Series X has been now strictly been assigned AAA, AA games only. So that's the big Game Boy. The Series S, on the other hand, is strictly assigned to indie games and smaller titles like Cassette Beasts, etc. So they've each got their home, and I've got them installed on the Series S. The good thing about that, though, is that the Series S is perfect for indie games because you can install about 500 of them because they're only about 1 gig or 2 gig.
Yeah, that is so true. That's what I do with a lot with my Ellie, you know? I also have only 500 gigs on the Ellie, and like 60 or 70 of those are already taken up by Windows. So, yeah, good shout. Dave Ramos sends in a $10 super chat and says, "From me to you two, here's some coin to buy yourselves a beer to drink during the business update. Cheers, mates."
Oh,
thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate that. Although we have to postpone the beer till next week because I'm still taking antibiotics because of my lung infection. So I'm not allowed to drink just yet.
I'll have a rum.
You know,
later.
That's why I'm shaking already a little. No, but Dave, thank you so much. It's gonna be a fantastic day. Let us really quickly finish up. What else have we been playing? I've been playing. Let me first close the poll. So otherwise, we will not have time to watch any gameplay. So Banishers wins here today, which is awesome to see.
Nice.
Exactly. So I'm gonna switch over to some Banishers gameplay. Look at
I'm
that
going to switch
beautiful
over
game.
to some. I've been playing Death Stranding again as well,
Ooh.
so I'm going to switch over to that. I recorded some gameplay of it. I'm determined to get through that before the next one, so I've got a good year and a bit to get through Death Stranding.
So what do you think about it?
You know what it is? The story's intriguing. The slog of climbing and things, I don't. It's not as bad as it was when I started playing it for the first time. When I started playing it for the first time, it felt like I was doing a lot of slogging all over the place for a significant amount of time. This time, it felt a little bit quicker, getting from point A to point B, which is intriguing. Graphically, great. The music, the soundtrack to it is great. The story's intriguing. It's just whether or not people want the whole rigmarole of walking from point A to point B initially and delivering packages and things. But it makes sense in the grand scheme of things why they're delivering packages and why he's essentially a delivery boy, because the entire world's cut off and you can't just drag cars from point A to point B, because if someone dies, it blows up like a massive nuclear holocaust. So it's intriguing. It's certainly intriguing.
Okay. I fell asleep twice in the first hour of that game and I never went back. So, yeah, man, I've finished Suicide Squad. And let me tell you, I do not get some of the reviews. Reviews are always about personal preference and taste and whatnot. But in no way is this game a 4 out of 10. Yeah, you can argue whether you want to give it an 8, a 9. You could also argue it's probably not a 10 out of 10. Yeah, but so that's obviously down to personal preference. But I think I gave it an 8.8 or 8.9 or something like that. And I actually had a lot of fun. Obviously, it's not an Arkham game. Yeah, people with Rocksteady automatically think about the Batman Arkham games, and this is more like a game like Outriders. You know, it's a looter shooter. You go to your missions, you get your better next gun or some special mods for your guns or better armor, and then go on to the next mission and so on. But the story is super funny, like really funny characters. I had to laugh multiple times whilst playing it. The combat actually is super fluent. If anyone enjoyed the gameplay mechanics of Anthem, you're gonna enjoy this one. Like, it reminded me a lot, maybe because I'm playing Deathshot mostly, with a jetpack, and then, you know, but it's like that. And then the end game is fun. It's a little grindy, yes, and a little repetitive in the mission design, but overall, there's plenty to do in the end game already before they drop season 1, which is, I think, next month when they're gonna drop that. So I had a blast playing Suicide Squad, man.
I'm glad you did. To be fair, the public's reception to Suicide Squad has been one of everyone's enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The press reaction, however, was kind of forcing hate. This is the thing that I've been winding me up about games journalism recently, is they need to find a game to hate, and IGN have done it again.
Yeah.
They've pivoted from doing their weekly, if not almost bi-daily updates on how much they hate Starfield to now how much they hate Suicide Squad. And that's basically the next one that they want to pick on for the next month or two until the next game comes out that they want to just slander it into the floor. We get you don't like the game. You don't have to tell us every other day that you hate the game.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if I came on every podcast and went, Boxy, I really, really, really don't like Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And you didn't even ask us. And then the next minute, I'm like, Boxy, I just need to tell you, I really don't like the Suicide Squad. Like, I think it's egregious. I don't like X, Y, and Z. And then the next podcast, tell you exactly, you'd be like, will you just shut up? I get it. You don't like it. It's just constant. I don't understand why they need to feel the need. Are they low on their click ad revenue?
It's clickbait. it's, you know,
nothing to talk about.
IGN sometimes just gets more clicks via hate than with positivity.
Yeah,
That's why they've been writing like all these Starfield articles. Yeah. And then on the other side, they didn't write any negative articles on Spider-Man because there it wouldn't work. And I don't know. It's just IGN and the Kotakus and so on. I'm so sick and tired of those. It's like unprofessionalism times 10, you know. It's like, and I also can't take Destin, even though he's like the Xbox face of IGN. I can't take him seriously, honestly. I'm sorry to say it like this. I can't take those guys serious.
Yeah. They're too bothered about getting involved in the console war narrative than actually just being a journalist.
Journalists and trying to be professional and objective as possible, as good as possible. But it's just not.
So this is why we stick. This is why we stick to Season Gaming. This is why we stick to Jeremy Penter. This is why we stick to the Iron Lords and things like that. It's because their sites don't drive intentional clickbait articles to get you in, because they don't care about the monetary aspect. Season Gaming doesn't even have any adverts on their site for that exact purpose.
Yeah.
Like, they don't make money from it. There's no reason to, because what they'd rather do is report the truth. If they think the game's bad, they'll tell you once, and that's it. And
exactly.
That's it. They don't need to keep forcing it down your throat until you eventually take notice. Like, you don't have to convince everybody a game is bad. If you think a game is bad in an opinion piece review, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't need to hear about it every other day.
True that. True that. So shout out to Andrew Sauce, who sends in a super sticker for $5 Australian. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dutch, whilst we are, or hang on, let me catch up on one other super chat that I almost missed from Pyro. Matt sends in £2. Thank you, sir. He says, you can't spell ignorance without IGN. And that hits the nail on the head. It is ridiculous what IGN have become. I'm sorry. They just are. I can't take them serious. That's why we are moving on from IGN. But Dutch, I want to talk a little bit about PlayStation whilst we are waiting for the Xbox Business Update podcast to drop. Because just the other day, and I'm kind of glad that this happened yesterday, because whatever we will hear later, it will put certain things maybe a little bit into perspective. And just up front, I put a poll in the chat. I want to hear your thoughts on what you think about the rumors of the Xbox direction that they are going for. I want to hear your thoughts there. Just vote in the chat. And I'm putting it out there. I'm no fan of that idea of leaving exclusives behind, going Multiplat. I don't like it for multiple reasons, but we will get to that a little later. I want to touch on what happened on the PlayStation side of things. Their interims CEO, well, who is actually like the Sony CFO and COO, Hiroki Totoki. He has done like an investor call that was translated to investors and media sites, and he put out a lot of like daring statements. So the first is that he went kind of hard on the PlayStation studios and organization not knowing how to grow their business. Let me read something from that interview. He said, "It's been about 4 months since I became chairman, and I'm trying to demonstrate leadership and have as many meetings as possible with the management team. I've also visited studios, and everyone is working really hard to fulfill their responsibility to try to optimize the business, and I understand that. But overall growth and sustainable pardon me, but overall growth and sustainable profitability for increasing margins. How will that translate to these goals? I don't think people understand that deeply. I think that is the problem of the organization. People who work in the studios have very high motivation. They are very highly motivated. They are very good people, and they have great creative minds and knowledge of live streaming. However, having said that, when it comes to the business, I think there is room for improvement. And that's to do with how to use money, the schedule of development, and how to fulfill one's accountability towards development. Those are my frank impressions. I will continue to engage in dialogue with the people so that we can find the right way to proceed. That's coming from PlayStation's CEO now, which is kind of a hard statement. He has also two other very bold statements. We'll talk about those in a second, Dutch. But basically, he comes out there, and I've not seen this like ever happen in any company, that the CEO comes out and says, hey, my organization does not know how to grow their business, how to do their job, basically. What did you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when hierarchy takes the place of the front-facing people that want to shield the consumer from what is actually happening. And he's went there and he said, listen, I've been in charge of this for X amount of time, basically throwing Jimbo under the bus and saying,
yeah,
like, they didn't know how to make their games sustainable long term, like beyond the initial sale, was basically what he's getting at. Like, they don't know how to do that.
They don't know how to make them profitable. They don't know how to schedule them. That's literally what he said. What was the quote? They don't know how to use money, how to schedule development cycles, and how to fulfill one's accountability towards development.
Yeah,
which is kind of harsh, and I do agree. It's basically a shot at what Jim did, and you can tell why he had to go. Basically, as good as Sony's basically overall sales are, and he gets into that a little later in the interview, talking about not achieving like their targeted sales. They wanted to sell 25 million consoles last year, and they only sold 21 million, so they missed that, which is still a very good selling console. It outsells the PS4 in life-to-date sales. But in order to grow the business, they would have had to sell a lot more consoles. And then the thing is about software, and it's not just video games, it's software in general. Software, why is that the most lucrative business in the world right now? It's because it is so easy to scale it. And that is what Xbox has been trying to do with their games going to PC day and date for years, many years now. And I mean, that's what now, I want to say 8 years. When did Quantum Break was the first one that released also on PC day and date? It was 2016 or so. So 7-8 years, something like that. Xbox has been doing that because they understand that you need to be able to scale that. And either you can scale your install base in a respective way so that this will translate to a respective growth. But the console industry overall doesn't grow fast enough. And this is that is the problem that he sees. And then the other thing is, he also confirmed they are not going to have any games until at least April 2025. No first-party games, we've been saying that for a while now, that their roadmap is super dry and empty. The only announced major first-party game that anyone cares about, at least, is Wolverine, which is at least a 26 title. So, especially after all those leaks. And he basically reconfirmed they don't have anything until the next fiscal year, which starts April 25. And obviously, that is also an issue they had to cancel like factions. Games they had to delay half of the games of a service title in development to a 2026 launch already, and all that stuff. What do you think, man? The guy really comes down hard on the team especially if you go public with that. What do you make of this entire thing?
I think he kind of needs to in order to get them to realize that, like, you're not. The business isn't as secure as everyone's kind of making out. And we need to start shifting gears and thinking of ways to make this more profitable, because it isn't more profitable. And Sony, unlike Xbox, if Xbox wants Xbox to go away, they won't miss it. Like, it isn't going to be a massive deal. Like, yes, it's their second largest revenue stream now, but that's because they've invested significant portions into that. But ultimately, if Xbox didn't exist, Microsoft would be fine. It isn't the same for PlayStation and Sony. If PlayStation didn't exist, Sony would be in a bit of a lurk. They would have an issue.
A very big issue. It's like, see, so far, if you look at the Microsoft stock, any announcement made towards the Xbox brand really never made a dent. The Activision Blizzard acquisition, a little bit. You could see like, okay, stocks jumped 2% that day, but then it dropped dropped down again the next day. So it really the Xbox business so far didn't really have like an impact on the stock market of Microsoft, because, like you said, it's only one part of that. That's very different with Sony. Their shares dropped yesterday 8.5% after that announcement, and it was only
in the month as well.
And if you think about it, it was actually good news that they reported they were able to sell 55 million consoles so far into this generation, which is only 3 years and 3 months now, which is an improvement over in the life-to-date sales over the PS4 generation, which obviously was considered a very successful generation for them. So they are doing better than the PS4 generation, but still not good enough. And what happens? Stock dropped hard, like 8.5%. That's a lot in just one day, you know?
Yeah.
I wanted to get to another point. I forgot. Help me out here. Right. 25, the next... Or they don't have any games until 2025. What do you think of that, man?
Yeah, no major first-party franchise games or current franchise games until 2025. So you'll not see a Ghost of Tsushima 2. You'll not see a new God of War. You'll not see a new Last of Us. You'll not see a new Ratchet & Clank. You'll not see any major first-party current franchise games before that point. And the only actual first-party game we know of that was apparently coming out before that point was Concord. That's the only one we knew of.
Also,
and I also don't believe Concord is coming this year.
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
Didn't they say? Or was that just a rumor that it was delayed? I'm not sure. It was just a rumor.
Just a rumor, but you would have, if it's meant to be the tail end of the year, realistically, they would have shown gameplay or something by now. You would have thought they would have shown something by now, but they haven't showed anything. They've just had their own mini showcase, and nothing was mentioned. It was all just third and second party stuff. And granted, there was some nice things shown off, but ultimately still didn't see Concord, which was the only first party game they had this year.
Yeah.
So I don't see them, like, as much as everyone's going, yeah, but they said franchise. Yeah, but realistically, have they announced anything as yet that is first party at all, other than Concord, which still hasn't had a gameplay reveal and an official release date? No, is the answer. So how can you be realistically confident that they're going to release any first-party games before April 25? Yeah. You can't be. This is the one thing we've been saying. Like, we've got Rebirth. Happy days. We're looking forward to Rebirth. Can't wait for it. Got it ready to rock and roll there. Pre-install will happen 2 days before release. Can't wait. But after that, the PlayStation 5 will almost certainly be going into hibernation mode because there's nothing coming out brand new after Rebirth that I'll be wanting to play on my PlayStation. Personally.
That's the thing. They still have a couple of exclusives for this year, like they just released Helldivers, which is second party. Final Fantasy, obviously second party. And there was Ronin, Rise of Ronin, Stellar Blade, yeah, all second party stuff. So they still have kind of those exclusive games. But yeah, nothing from first party.
It's gonna be your bag if you don't want loads of Japanese, Asian hack and slash games. Then you're out of luck.
Yeah. And
I don't want loads of the same type of game. And this year, like Helldivers, I'll pick up at some point.
I don't know.
I'm not in a rush.
I don't know.
I'm personally waiting. I'm personally waiting to see how Helldivers does over the course of a few months and see what the traction is over a few months.
Yeah, see,
if there's still a player base there and they've made updates to it to expand it a little bit, I'll consider it. If, however, it's fallen off entirely, then I'm not bothered picking it up.
See, the problem with games like Helldivers is they all suck if you play them 3 months after launch for the first time, because by that time, only those guys who stuck with the game for 3 months are playing it. They are over-leveled, they are over-skilled, they are simply better than you, and it's usually no fun to play those kind of games. Either you play them at launch, stick with the game, have fun with it, or you're out. If you haven't played Halo, and you want to get into Halo now, it sucks. It sucks big ass time, because when you go online, you get destroyed. You have no fun. So either you stick with the game, you have the skill already, go there. But if you're a newbie, you have no fun playing. And it's the same with Helldivers and all those kind of games. So yeah, it's probably a fun game. It looks actually good. But in between Suicide Squad and Prince of Persia and Banishers, which is on screen right now, that I'm playing, I just don't have the time to play Helldivers right now. Final Fantasy is coming out in 2 weeks. Looking forward to that. So it's for me that
that's gonna be like a 100-hour game.
Yeah, I don't put like multiplayer games in my backlog. If I miss them, I just miss them. The next good one is just around the corner, and then I'll enjoy that. You know. But
I want to do a quick shout out to a super chat I got through a little bit ago. Quote from Face23 BKNY. With a $20 super chat, so thank you very much for that. He said, Sony is following Xbox. There's no talk of Sony games going to Xbox. There is no day-and-date games on retail subscriptions. There's no Sony single-player games day one on PC. So when is Sony doing day one on PC timeframe? I think, based on the comments of the CFO/COO, it's going to be within the next year. You will see games, first party included.
Absolutely. I think the next game that they are going to release from first party is going to be day and date. I've no doubt. Listen, this is a fantastic question. Let me use this because I actually wanted to segue into exactly that particular topic and read from the interview what Hiroki Totoki had to say about exactly that. He said, in the past, we wanted to popularize consoles, and first-party titles' main purpose was to make the console popular. This is true, but there's a synergy to it. So you have strong first-party content, not only our console, but also other platforms like computers. A first-party game can be grown with multi-platform, and that can help operating profit to improve. So that's another one we want to proactively work on. I personally think that there are opportunities out there for improvement of our margin, so I would like to go aggressive on improving our margin performance. Listen, if the new acting CEO of PlayStation, even though they only say he's just doing it until they find a new guy, but they will only find a guy that does exactly what he likes to or wants to do, and he obviously says, "I want to do that aggressively, scale towards PC." And so I have no doubt that with the next PlayStation game, you will see a shift on doing that. Whatever the next first-party title is going to be, it's gonna drop day and date on PC. They've seen the success with Helldivers. Helldivers got almost 200,000 concurrent players on Steam. You know, and those are all sales. It's performing really, really well. They've seen what this can do, and there's no reason that as the next Ghost of Tsushima or whatever it will be, Wolverine, or the next PlayStation first-party title, they also single player. After seeing these numbers and after going public with that statement, we want to try to aggressively grow our margin. We want to, what was the quote? Hang on. We want to have a strong first-party content, not only on our console, but also on other platforms. A first-party game can be grown with multi-platform and can help operating profit to improve. That's what he said. And we are proactive workingly on that. So, yeah. I don't know, Dutch, how you see it, but I've no doubt that this is going to happen rather sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely sooner than later. It's an absolute no-brainer. What they've seen with Helldivers is that it does absolutely not affect anything that happens on the console. The PC market and the console market are entirely two separate kinds of players. The people that play on PC are not standard the people that play on console, and if they are, usually the people on PC, if they want to play it on console, they'll just buy it twice. Like, there's a lot of double dippers on, especially for people with PCs, and with cross-play and cross-platform and all of that stuff involved. They don't need to worry about that anymore. That's what PlayStation really hated, was cross-play stuff, and they hated cross-play because it meant that people didn't need to get it on their platform.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what they will say is that money is money no matter where you get it from. And if you've got a second market, regardless of if it releases day and date, it's still a second market that you weren't otherwise active in previously. And if that means that your console only does 1 million, like a lot of their AA stuff does, like the likes of Returnal, etc., scratched like barely 1 million sales. If Returnal had launched day and date on PC and on console, you would have seen that be 3, 4, 5 million, because PC players are vastly outnumbering those that play on console, vastly. You tend to find even the smallest of games are 2, 3, 4 million people deep in terms of sales on Steam immediately from the off. So it's like an absolute no-brainer. Like, why would you pass up like 3 million plus potential sales, if not more, on PC just because you don't want to launch it day and date? That doesn't make much sense, to be honest. To them now, and the CFO knows it, why wouldn't we aggressively go on all fronts?
Well, in the past, their thinking was, okay, this is really a reason for people to invest in the PlayStation console, into that particular ecosystem, and we make more money if we sell our stuff on our console than if we do it on Steam. And if we do it on Steam, Steam gets a cut. That same cut we would be getting directly if we sell it on our platform. They don't have a PC storefront, where to drive in the revenue themselves. And that helped, of course, to grow their console install base. Because even if you're a diehard PC gamer, if you wanted to play God of War or Horizon or Ghost of Tsushima, you had to get a PlayStation anyway. So it was like, really forcing the ecosystem onto them. But obviously they've seen what they did with or what Xbox has done over the course of the last years, and that their profit margins are remarkable given the install base of their consoles. And of course, again, it's about growth. Yeah. They just performed more or less the exact same way like they did last gen, which is still good. It's still a good business, but business evaluations are always based on the potential of growth. And that happens in every industry. Look, if you look at Tesla, yeah, Tesla is per se not worth what they are net worth right now. I think 150 billion or so, 50 billion or 200 billion, whatever there is. And it's not because if you look at all the factories together that this is like the net worth of the company, but because investors believe in the growth of the company, and that's how business works. You have to grow your business each and every year. Just even if you have an amazing 2023, which PlayStation actually did, they had a very good 2023. If they do the same this year, it's not good. You have to grow in order to be interesting for investors, in order to grow your company's value. Nintendo can behave a little bit different because the most of the company is still owned by private investors, and it's really not particularly the same. But every other business has to grow, and that's what they are looking at right now at the problem, and that's also what Microsoft is looking at right now, and that's why we have this entire discussion here today, and we are still waiting for 10 more minutes, Dutch, until this podcast drops. So maybe we should briefly or smoothly transition over transition over to Xbox and that discussion, because Xbox is facing the same thing. How can we grow? And they haven't grown in the console space really that much. You can argue they haven't even tried. That's what I always say. I don't feel like Xbox has tried for the last decade, at least. The last time they tried to grow the console space was during the 360 days. And that's when they've been super successful. Yeah, when they secured great second-party exclusives like Mass Effect and Oblivion and stuff like games like that. Yeah, and then on top they had Fable and Gears and Halo and their own great and Forza and all those amazing first-party IPs. And then again, you put Mass Effect as an exclusive and Fallout and Oblivion. Fallout 3 was a timed exclusive, but anyway, you know what I mean. You put all that stuff on top of that, and that's when then they hate marketing, yeah. And then with the Xbox One generation, we all know what happened. Yeah, they didn't invest in content. They didn't invest in marketing. They actually dropped that completely. And for like at least a decade now, they have not been marketing the consoles. They have not put out content, not even this generation. After buying all those studios back in 2018, you can argue they are going to have an amazing 24 if all those games come out. But it's only up until this point in time where Xbox actually has content. Yeah. Last year, you could argue, with Starfield, that was the beginning. Yeah. And after that, they had Forza Motorsport. And that was the beginning of where they now seem to actually deliver the quality content in a regular cadence. But in the first 3 years of this console generation, they had Halo and Forza Horizon 5 in 3 years. And that's all that they had. They didn't have content. They didn't have the promise. They didn't deliver on the promise of power. They didn't deliver the power narrative, and there was zero marketing. I know it's a little different maybe in the US, where they actually care, but outside of the US, Microsoft really does absolutely not care about growing their ecosystem. It's not. They don't care if they grow Game Pass. They don't care if they grow the consoles. They just don't care. There's zero marketing behind it. There were absolutely zero to none efforts to improve the localization problems that they have, and so on. So if you sum it up, Microsoft really didn't care to grow the ecosystem. Now that they are at this point, after all those years where people have been patiently waiting for Xbox to get there. Now that Xbox has the content in the pipeline, yeah, to actually make the investment in the Xbox ecosystem worth it. Where you feel like, okay, now they could be back to where they were in the 360 days, where they had like great releases every year, and now they can be like have the self-confidence and finally grow the market. Xbox says, yeah, well, we are not growing in the console ecosystem, so we're just going third party. That's at least what the rumors are and what the fears are out there. And I see a lot of people feel very passionately about that, and I do as well, because I feel like as an Xbox customer, we deserve the patience that we put out towards Xbox for all those years.
Yeah.
Besides that, there's a lot of things with that you can bring up as an argument with like potential reduction of competition, which I really don't like. I don't look at this like, yeah, but from a business point of view, it totally makes sense. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if Microsoft or Sony makes more money. Yeah. If a $1 trillion company makes more money, I don't care about that. I care what is good for us as a community, as gamers, as customers. I look at it from that point of view. And of course, if Microsoft brings their exclusives to PlayStation or Nintendo, there is this point. Why invest in an Xbox console? And even if they only do it for a few games and not every game, you will still have this discussion with every game. With every game that they are going to release, you will have the IGNs and the Kotakus and the GameSpots out there writing articles. Oh, Indiana Jones, is it coming to PlayStation 5? Oh, Fable might come to whatever, the Switch 2. You will have those articles every time.
And the natural knock-on effect of that, Boxy, is the fact that people will wait.
Exactly.
You've seen PC
people will wait.
Sony games.
Yeah.
People are just like, oh, well, when's the PlayStation game coming to PC? I'll just wait. And if you are like the casual gamers and you want, hey man, I'm in this. I want to get a video game console again. I'm in this mood now to play a few games. And you start Googling, so what to get, Xbox or PlayStations? And you will find dozens of articles saying, oh, Xbox games come to PlayStation. Why would you invest in that? And it is nothing that will happen overnight. It is absolutely, but you will see that over years. You will see that decline in importance of Xbox consoles, the console ecosystem over years, leading to less competition with Sony. And that's just what will happen. And I don't like that. I like that. I want Microsoft and Sony to fight for my wallet. I want both of them to have their exclusives because it gives the console platform an identity. And I don't want the discussion around every freaking game that Microsoft is going to release. Is it exclusive or not? Is it going to be? I don't want that. It's not good for the brand. It is not good for growing the Xbox console ecosystem. And that's why I don't think it will be good for us at the very end of the day as gamers. We need that competition in that market. Yeah, that's the thing that I've been stressing, that a lot of people, and this isn't trying to be a dick about it as well, but myself and Boxy I've worked in industries and in certain parts of industries that are very competition focused, and you absolutely need to be when you're in a business. And the only way for those businesses to strive, and this goes for every business, by the way, from the little mum and dad shops on the street all the way up to big blue chip corporates, you need to do something to stand out. If you don't stand out and provide something to the consumer that is something that nobody else does, then nobody will come to your business for what they require or what they need. If you don't stand out and have something that differentiates you from the competition, that is substantially different, and I don't mean an ecosystem or this one has achievements and this one has trophies, because that's the generalized consumer. The casuals don't give a shit. They don't. The main reason PlayStation are trumping Xbox now, this day and age, has got bugger all to do the vast majority of the time with the exclusives. The reason Sony is as popular as it is because everybody has a PlayStation. So when one of your friends goes, "What are you gaming on?" and what the other guy says, "What are you gaming on?" and everybody, bar one person, is on PlayStation, and this one standout guy's got an Xbox, what are you going to go with if everybody has FIFA and you want to play FIFA with them? Granted, it's a everyone can play it regardless of platform now, but what are you going to go with as a casual? Oh, everyone's got a PlayStation, so I'll just pick a PlayStation up. That's the general, that's the casual's mindset.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do realistically to capture that audience outside of just, okay, this is this and this is this? You need to have a differentiator, and the only differentiators consoles realistically have between one or the other now isn't hardware, because they're both based on exactly the same architecture. They've got a couple of little tweaks here and there, but both hardware aren't the most powerful things you can buy. So if you're interested in power and performance, then you go to PC.
Absolutely.
End of. If you're wanting the an experience that everybody plays right now, that's PlayStation, because everybody has a PlayStation. That's pretty much how it is.
Yeah.
The random people have an Xbox, but the only differentiator is software. So when you take away that differentiator and all of the software that one produces is on the other box, why would you then go to that other box other than having a historic back catalogue?
Exactly.
If you've got a historic back catalogue, you've got no reason to invest in the next one. Oh, well, all my games are on this. Okay, well then stick with the one that you had all your games on.
Yeah, I agree.
Why invest in the next one?
And that is exactly what will happen. It is nothing that will happen overnight, but gradually you will see that the Xbox console will simply play no role, and as Sony can do a lot more of the outrageous things that they've done in the past, like increase game prices. They don't have the necessity to innovate on games anymore, because they are getting all games anyway. Yeah, and it is not. It is. I don't think that it is good for the consumer in the end. I do get it from a business standpoint. But Dutch, briefly, 1 second. I need to shout out Dave Ramos for a channel member chat. He says putting Call of Duty into Game Pass day one would change that conversation. Full stop. It would definitely lead to a shift towards Game Pass. And yes, I think Xbox should leverage that stuff. They have the games now. They have all those studios and the IPs that can grow your ecosystem, and you should leverage that. Be a little bit more aggressive. Xbox has not been aggressive for many, many years now. They have not. They used to be super aggressive during the 360 days, but not in the Xbox One generation, and definitely not this generation. They have not been. They are always kumbaya, like we're nice to everyone. Be aggressive. Be like, because Sony really needs some competition. And Steam, by the way, Steam also needs competition. They basically own the PC market. So. Yeah, Dutch, we are at this point where everyone is probably refreshing the browser. The business update is live, Dutch.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. So it is.
I've paused
hang
it
on, guys.
0,
Yeah, exactly. So we are going. Let's see if this works. I am at 000.
Yeah.
Dutch, you too. Then because then we could play this. And
hello and welcome to the official Xbox podcast. I'm your host Tina Amini, and we have a very special episode today.
2, 1, go.
All right.
Hello and welcome to the official. Hello and
we're gonna
welcome
mute
to the
ourselves.
Official Xbox podcast. I'm your host Tina Amini, and we have a very special episode today, as you can probably tell by the fact that I'm joined by Phil, Sarah, and Matt. Welcome. And we're going to talk about some updates at Xbox. We want to talk about game exclusivity. We want to talk about
Dutch, mute your mic.
Part of our portfolio, how that might be an impact on Game Pass, and we want to talk about hardware too, and how all of this fits into the strategy at Xbox. So where should we start, Phil?
Well, when we originally had planned for the show, starting back in December, I think we probably would have started with Activision Blizzard, maybe talked a little bit about the exclusivity with some of the news coming up, and then hardware. But we've had some unforeseen news that has come out. So let's just go and tackle the exclusivity question, because I know it's on the minds of a lot of people. We hear from the community, and that's an important input for us. So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles, just 4 games, not a change to our kind of fundamental exclusive strategy. We're making these decisions for some specific reasons. We make every decision really with the long-term health of Xbox in mind. And long-term health of Xbox means a growing platform, our games performing, building the best platform for creators, reaching as many players as we can. We're always looking to learn as a leadership team and to grow. And we think this is an interesting point in time for us to use what some of the other platforms have right now to help grow our franchises. So we're going to do that.
So these 4 titles, what are they? Can you say?
I'm not going to name those games. The teams that are building those games have announced plans that are not too far away. As we know, game teams put a lot of energy into their announcements with the partners. So I don't want to take anything away from those teams. So I won't be talking about the titles specifically, but I think when they come out, it'll make sense.
Can we say if either of those titles are Starfield or Indiana Jones?
They are not Starfield or Indiana Jones.
Well, what was the criteria in how the team was thinking about selecting those 4 titles?
Let me start a little bit outside of that, and then I'll get to the 4 specific games that we're talking about right now. Because the fundamental decision driver for any decision that we make, anything we're going to talk about today, is the long-term health of Xbox. That we're running a growing platform that is reaching more players, that our games are having as much success as possible. And I do have a fundamental belief that over the next 5 or 10 years, exclusive games that are exclusive to one piece of hardware, are going to be a smaller and smaller part of the game industry. And that's not some great insight, because if you look at the last 10 years and what the biggest games are today, it's a natural place. Whether it's one console and PC, multiple consoles, mobile console and PC, you see big games landing on multiple platforms. And we want to be a great platform for creators that are trying to realize that potential. But now back to the specifics of the question on these four specific titles. We looked at games that are over a year old, so they've been on Xbox and PC for a while. A couple of the games are community-driven games, new games that kind of first iterations of a franchise that have reached their full potential, I'd say, on Xbox and PC. There's always growth. Franchises that we obviously want to continue to invest in. Part of having the ability to continue to invest is that the businesses behind those franchises continue. We think it's important that these service-based games that have communities behind them, that they can have confidence that they're going to exist in the future. So 2 of them, kind of community-driven games that will end up on other platforms and give us the ability to continue to invest in them. We think that's great for the business and great for the communities, more players to play with. I'd say 2 of the other games are smaller games that were never really meant to be built as kind of platform exclusives and all the fanfare that goes around that. But games that our teams really wanted to go build, that we love supporting creative endeavors across our studios, regardless of size. And as they've realized their full potential on Xbox and PC, we see an opportunity to utilize the other platforms as a place to just drive more business value out of those games, allowing us to invest in maybe future iterations of those, so sequels to those, or just other games like that in our portfolio. And when we don't damage Xbox and we can grow our business using what other platforms have and to help us with that, we're going to do that. And that's really the story behind these 4 games. And last thing I'll say, looking forward, I think there is an interesting story for us of introducing Xbox franchises to players on other platforms to get them more interested in Xbox. We think there's a good brand value for Xbox there. So 4 games, no promise beyond that. So if you're on those other platforms and you see these 4 games coming, please don't take it as some signal that everything's coming. It's not. And we're going to learn.
So when you are thinking about the future and this concept of live service games, games that can benefit from bigger audiences, new audiences, how does that apply to future titles and how you're applying that criteria there?
Yeah, there's really no fundamental change to how we think about exclusivity. We just came out of Developer Direct, which was an awesome show, where we showed great games that are coming to Xbox and PC and cloud, which really makes them accessible to hundreds of millions of people. So it's this kind of, we're really focused on a couple platforms and what's going to show up there. But our key of play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, when everybody plays, we all win. These have been part of our strategy for years and will continue to be. Our focus is on how do we continue to grow the games industry by reaching more players in more places, and how do we grow Xbox as part of that. Xbox is a hardware platform, Xbox is a publisher of great games, and Xbox as a platform for the world's best creators.
And then knowing that, how do we think about our first-party games and Game Pass?
Yeah, well, to build on what Phil just said, one thing I would add, as you were talking about growth, is just that we've sort of seen this inversion over the last 5 years where it used to be that the platform was the biggest thing.
That's right.
And the games would sort of tuck in within the platform. Today, big games like a Roblox or a Fortnite could actually be bigger than any one platform. And that really has changed the way that we think about things. So in the midst of all that, I think we at First Party can come back to sort of some core principles. First, that all of our games will be on the Xbox platform. Second, all of our games will go into Game Pass on day one. And third, we know that Game Pass will only be available on Xbox. So there's sort of starting points for us. As Phil mentioned, there are games today that you can play that only can be found on Xbox. And at the same time, we want to bring more of our games to more players. So we're going to continue to look at that. Kind of moving aside, though, from some of those and thinking more about what does it really mean for the player, to me, the two key things are cross-play and cross-save. Those things allow us to deliver on the promise of Xbox, which is play with your friends where they are, play on the devices you want, play the games you want. So that is really only possible at a practical level when you know that your saves and your player are going to be able to move across all those parts. So not all of our games today are necessarily built to take advantage of that. There still will be some games that don't. As we bring more teams into the Xbox family, there's some catch up to do as we get there. But that cross-play, cross-save is like so fundamental to what we're doing, and I think is something that we as First Party get such a good benefit from being so close to the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things, like you said, all of our games are always in Game Pass. And so I'm excited to announce, with the coming together that we had with Activision Blizzard King, that Activision and Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass, starting with Diablo 4 on March 28th, which I'm super, super excited to share today. And it's all part of our commitment to make Xbox, the Xbox experience, and the games that we build as widely available as possible. So now the 34 million Game Pass members can all enjoy the fantastic experience of Diablo 4.
Amazing. Can we come back to the point, Phil, you mentioned at the top, this isn't really a change in strategy for us. Can you recap for me how it isn't?
Yeah, and I thought both Matt and Sarah did a really nice job of talking about what we're doing on Xbox, where we're going. If you take a platform feature like Xbox Play Anywhere, which has been a promise that we've made on our first-party games, that you can buy our game once, you're going to get play across Xbox and Windows. I think we're the only platform that does this. That makes it possible for you not only to play with your friends wherever they are, but to know that you actually have multiple entitlements to the games. I think that's a technology I would love to see applied to more platforms. But it is this view that people are going to play Xbox in multiple places. Whether it's play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, whether it's content, community, and cloud, whether it's when everybody plays, we all win. Like, we've had different taglines, different strategy, kind of words that we've used, but always with this view that Xbox is a platform for creators who want to reach the most players. Our investments in xCloud, our investments in franchises like Minecraft and now Call of Duty and other large franchises so that we learn how to build those. This has been a strategy that we've been on for, I'd say, a decade. It's not about one device. It's not about games in service of a device, but rather the devices that people want to play on should be in service of making the games as big and popular as they possibly could be. Because really, a healthy creator community on Xbox, a healthy creator community in gaming all up, is the thing that all of us as game players should be voting for, because that's the thing that will lead to the best long-term success and growth in this industry.
And my understanding, just from listening and learning from you three over the past few weeks, just understanding what's happening with Xbox, is that we see trends with player behavior where people are playing on multiple devices. That is the reality. And we have put some games out on multiple platforms before. So my understanding is that that's been good for players. How does that come back to the business with all of that in mind?
Yeah, as you said, we have shipped games on other platforms. In fact, realistically, if you look with the addition of Activision and Blizzard and ZeniMax, we're one of the largest game publishers on PlayStation. We're one of the largest publishers on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you put Minecraft into the equation as well. And now we're one of the largest publishers on mobile platforms as well. And that's not something that we want to back away from. We want to continue to be building great games that millions and millions of people can love, and that they can play those games where they want to go play. But we do understand the business success that Xbox has to have. Us as leaders in this business, the system today, the system that all companies that we play video games from, is a world of you got to be growing your business. Growth in our Xbox business is critical to the long-term health of Xbox. Many people know I've been on Xbox for over 20 years. And I want to make sure Xbox is in the best position for the next 20 years. That means healthy player community, healthy creator community, and healthy business. So when we look at opportunities to allow more people to play, more people engage, more people to buy, more people to subscribe, it's all about putting Xbox in the best position. And our hardware is a critical component of that. The absolute best experience somebody has on Xbox is hardware that your team builds and that people play on. But that's not going to be everybody. We fully accepted that we're going to have Xbox players across all kinds of devices.
So I think a lot of people think about 2023 as this incredible year for gaming. And in a lot of ways it was. There was some really amazing releases that I think we all enjoyed. But what were the signals behind the scenes that maybe indicated how we wanted to look at the future of Xbox and how we kind of keep up with the industry?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it's, as people who care about the industry, which I assume is people who are watching this, it was an amazing year. Some great launches, some of the games that I think will stand the test of time and people will be talking about a decade from now. But it's an industry that didn't really grow. And what happens when an industry doesn't grow? You end up with some job eliminations, which we had. We had even our own hard decisions to make about building a sustainable business for ourselves, but in no way were we alone in that. When you think about a healthy industry, I want players who believe that they will find the best games on the platforms that they love. I want people who invest their careers in working here to feel like this is a place that they can be successful. And that really is down to being part of an industry that is growing. If you listen to Lisa Su, the AMD CEO, she'll say that AMD-powered consoles are likely to decline in 2024. I think there's an amazing set of games coming in 2024, but if we don't get to growing as an industry, the industry will struggle. And today there's really two choices on how do you grow the industry. Do you say, I have a fixed number of players, the players that we have today, and do I find new ways to monetize those players to get more money from the players that I have? Or do you think about how do I expand the business I have by finding new players and adding those to the base of players that already play? Our focus on Xbox for the last decade has really been on that latter point of how do we make sure Xbox is growing for our players, growing for our creators, so those people are finding success on our platform, which will grow the Xbox business and put Xbox in a position to be very strong for years and decades to come.
Matt, earlier you were talking about these growing gaming communities, how they're incredibly large and comparable on such a different level when we think about console audiences. Like you mentioned Roblox, you mentioned Fortnite. So how are we're obviously thinking about our responsibility, our hardware responsibility is supporting the growth of gaming communities. How has that actually shown up for the players? Are there other games we can speak to from our portfolio?
Well, as Phil mentioned, two of the biggest ones for us, Call of Duty and Minecraft, they are driven just from the bottom up by the communities of people that play those games, which is so great. I think about it, for the player community, it comes down to where are the friends, where are the people you play with, and then equally important is where have you built up your library of games, right? Where have you invested? Where's that library? I think Those two things probably are some of the biggest influences on where people choose to play and what devices they choose to play.
Yeah.
When we think about, on the other side, the developer side, just any game developer wants their game to find the biggest audience possible. That's just the nature of building a game. You want people to enjoy and participate in what you've made. And I think we're in a unique position to deliver on that just because we are the platform. We build hardware, we've got a first-party games group, and then we've got a system that ties that together, that brings together your friends, your progression, your achievements, all of that. And I think that's really what has contributed to the momentum behind some of these communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at, just step back and you look at the history of the industry, we've moved from a place where it used to be that someone built and launched a game to accelerate hardware to actually the things we do with our hardware and with our platform are all in service of making those games bigger. And we think about that across all of the investments we make, the consoles we build, the investments we do with things like cross-play, cross-progression, the things that we're doing with cloud. How do we actually give more options to game creators so they can have the greatest success? I think one of the fun recent examples about this is actually Pal World. You know, Pal World was able to launch, they were a game preview, they launched in Game Pass, they also simultaneously launched in Steam. And through the combination of those things, you know, Pocket Pair was able to have this outsized success, and it was the largest third-party Game Pass launch ever. And that's all because we give creators options on how they can launch their games. We've got subscription, we've got retail, we've got free-to-play, we've got game preview. We have the consoles, we have our experience on PC, and they can access all of those things. And when we step back and we just look at the performance of our platform all up, we know it's working. We're at the highest level of users on console, the highest level of users on PC, the highest level of users on cloud ever. We have double-digit growth rate on PC and cloud, places where we're enabling creators to actually reach new players beyond the console ecosystem. And that's why we're leaning into it and doing more, because we see all those signals.
So we're talking about the role that hardware plays for creators, for the games and those communities. What about the role that hardware plays for us as a business, for Xbox?
When we look at our hardware, it really is, and Phil said this earlier, it's where you get like the most flagship seminal experience of Xbox. And it also represents a developer target. Our developers can build the specs of our hardware, and we invest to make sure they know when they do that the games are going to run great on our hardware, but they're also going to be able to be accessed across any screen because of all the other investments we make. So we're giving them an easy way to access as many players as possible. And we actually have more creators right now building for Xbox than ever before by nature, thousands of them by nature of those investments. And we got more to come. There's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday. And we're also invested in the next generation roadmap. And what we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building.
And then when we're talking about hardware too, there's these other considerations that are really important to our community, probably to each one of ourselves as well. When you talk about library, because I want to dig in on that a little bit more. You know, as we talk about cloud in the wider entertainment industry, there's conversations about streaming. How is that impacting how I own my content that I've invested in? So what can we say about our stance around game preservation?
Yeah, you know, one of the highlights for me of being in this position was getting to stand on stage when we announced back compat coming to Xbox One. Like, it was fantastic. People were reading the teleprompter before I could read it. I'm a slow reader, and just feeling the energy in the auditorium as we were saying that and online. You know, one of the cues I think us as being part of Microsoft take is looking at Windows and how Windows over decades has maintained software compatibility with things that are built on it. Like, I can still go back and play some of the games that I love playing on Windows from decades ago, and it will still run. And we try to bring that same view to consoles. It's harder in console because the line between what the hardware is and what the game is in consoles is traditionally, it's tighter, which makes compatibility, you end up doing these generational compatibilities that we've built. But I will say compatibility, the ability to not only play the games, but my saves are still there with our cloud save systems to try to keep the services up as long as we can so that people can play, is a tenet of what we are as Xbox. It's at our foundation. And when we look at future hardware generations and what we're going to support, making sure that we respect, which is the word I use, respect the investments that people have made in Xbox going forward is fundamental. And the fact that you get entitlements when you buy a game from us on both Windows and Xbox also means you have the ability to play that game across a multitude of devices, which I think furthers the compatibility of the games that you own.
Can we go back to what Xbox stands for today? I think we've pretty much covered all of the elements, but if you could break it down for me.
You know, when you play on Xbox, what we're saying is you're playing on a platform where you know the biggest games in the world are always going to be. You're playing on a platform where you get to access Game Pass. And all of the games from our incredible range of studios will always launch in Game Pass day one. And you're playing on a platform that's dedicated to you, like player-first features, cross-play, cross-save, cross-progression, backwards compatibility, being able to play your games in your library anywhere you want because of the investments that we make in cloud gaming. And so you're playing somewhere where you're investing and you know you get to take the games forward with you and across all of the screens where you are. And I think most importantly, Xbox is a place where you know when you're investing in Xbox, you're investing somewhere that is dedicated to making games more successful and creators more successful so that they can invest more to bring even better experiences to you all of the time.
Yeah, just that investment in the studios is so, and we feel that as part of first party with the platform proximity. You know, it's kind of amazing now to look out across all the studios that we've got and just be reminded that we're now one of the biggest development organizations in the industry. What does that mean for players? It means that the biggest games are going to continue to come to Xbox. And this 2024, the year coming up, we've got more than 10 major releases coming up. Great stuff. Hellblade 2. We've got Diablo expansion. We've got Avowed, Ara, the Indiana Jones game. And there's more in development, which I think we're going to be able to share more about at our June showcase coming up pretty soon.
Well, I guess I should get ready to work on that show. Well, thank you all for showing up on the podcast today, and we'll see the rest of you this June.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Games in this podcast range from E to M.
Hello and welcome.
All right.
Okay.
Dutch, I have an echo on your end.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute it. There we go. I'll turn it down a little bit. There you go. It should be good now.
All right. So, Dutch.
That was a whole lot of nothing. A whole lot of nothing. I just want to get it. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, tell me, because I'm a little speechless, and that is not a good thing if you want to do a podcast. So I'm glad if you would take the first comment of the day. Sure. And guys, let us know in the chat, what did you think? Success? Was that good? Did Xbox address the concerns? Did they have clear messaging for you? I will also put up a poll. Please vote. We want to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the chat what you think. Dutch, let me hear your thoughts, man.
That was wildly blown out of proportion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
First and foremost, let's get into the kind of key talking points. I've made a note of them all the way through there. The key talking points that they brushed on, other than the kind of jargon in between, because a lot of it was fluff. 4 games are coming out cross-platform. No change to strategy otherwise. Won't name the exact games. However, he kind of broadly spoke about which ones they weren't. He said there isn't Starfield, there isn't Indiana Jones. They will remain exclusive. 2 of them are service-based games that have been out more than a year. 2 of them are smaller titles. So from that, my personal belief, it is Sea of Thieves and Grounded as the service-based games, potentially maybe something else, but along those lines. And 2 smaller titles being Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment. Both of those have definitely got as far as they can go on the console. And as he alluded to, weren't originally meant to be exclusive anyway. They were games that were in development pre-acquisition, as it were. So those games weren't really meant to be boxed off, but they chose to originally anyway. They just launched it day and date on Xbox and in Game Pass, etc. So 2 small titles, 2 service-based games, no change otherwise. No big first-party games are going cross-platform. Diablo 4 is going to Game Pass on March 28th as the first ABK game to go in there.
Yeah, but bro, hang on. Before we go through all the announcements of the thing,
I was just going to basically go off the key points there before we start digging into them. Yeah.
Okay. So then please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Just wanted to
We're going to
tackle
dive
it one
into
at a
each of these.
time.
Don't worry. We're going to dive into each of these properly. Another one that they kind of reiterated on numerous occasions that we'll talk about as well. Hardware is not going anywhere. They reiterated that hardware is essential for game growth and how games grow and get bigger and better. General market stagnation they spoke about. Industry shrank and stagnated last year. Ways to find more ways to grow the industry to ensure the success long term of both the development team, the games, and the community. Hardware announcements this holiday. Additional ways to play, essentially. I've got down here, it was good scripted questioning, hitting some of the key areas that they needed to talk on. Of course, it was scripted, so they had time to plan this and prepare for the answers. And 10 big releases this year, Motor Show in June, were the kind of key focus points there. But of course, the one thing we all wanted for them to reiterate was their strategy with regards to exclusivity.
Yeah.
How they're bringing the games to what platforms, what criteria they judge it by, in where they see growth on that particular title, and what kind of areas they see as potential reasons to bring it cross-platform.
And did you think they did do a good job on that? Because I have a super chat here from Tron TJ. Thank you so much, man. He says they definitely, pardon me, they definitely addressed everything. No changes to Game Pass.
Yep.
I mean, they touched on basically all the issues that the community had: exclusivity, console. Still, are they going to make that? Do we lose first day and date drops? They kind of touched on everything, but did you feel like
especially the exclusivity?
Like did they address the concerns of the community so far? In my,
I would say yes and no. Yes, it is nowhere near as bad as the media made it out to be. The media made it out to be that Gears of War, Halo, Starfield, every big major IP is going to go multi-platform, and you're never going to see an exclusive on Microsoft ever again. It's going to be hell. They're going third party. It's dying. Oh no. Realistically, that isn't the case. Their strategy hasn't changed, as he's alluded to there. The older games that they're bringing are, again, two of the largest games that they're bringing across are service-based games. They're not the big major franchises. They are, like I said, Sea of Thieves has been one that's hinted the most, but Sea of Thieves is the likely one. It's at 35 million players across console and PC. However, and I will say however, we had this discussion prior. I don't think Sea of Thieves will get outside of being in a subscription service. And again, we don't know what discussions they've had with PlayStation Plus, but outside of being in a subscription service, I cannot see Sea of Thieves. And I've put many days worth of playtime into Sea of Thieves myself. I love the game, but I cannot see Sea of Thieves selling well on PlayStation. If it was in a sub-service, you'll get plenty of players on PlayStation. If it's sold on PlayStation, however, I cannot see it doing numbers. It's not the user base for that type of game.
Yeah,
I understand why they want to put games like that onto PlayStation, because they believe they will grow the player base there. And maybe if they do hash out an agreement for Sea of Thieves and Grounded to go in PS Plus, that will benefit. And I think that would probably be the best strategy for them. Listen, guys, we've got Sea of Thieves, we've got Grounded. These are our service-based games. They would probably work best if they were in your sub-service as opposed to being on sale. That will grow the player base a bit more. We rely more on the microtransactions of that than the actual physical sales. We don't believe these games are going to sell particularly well on your console, although we will give the option to do that. I think that would be the best arc for them to do that with service-based games, is try to work with PlayStation to get them into a service so that players have those ways of doing it. Otherwise, I don't see the games selling well off their own accord. Hi-Fi and Pentiment are the two small titles I believe will be the ones. I think Hi-Fi's been...
I do agree. I think that's the two, Hi-Fi and Pentiment, and then as a service game, it's going to be Grounded, and it's going to be Sea of Thieves. I think those two...
I think in terms of reiterating, Starfield and Indiana Jones are not going to go cross-platform, and they are remaining exclusive. He's like, no, they are not the two. Starfield and Indiana Jones are exclusive. Especially Starfield, which was massively rumored to be, they're definitely bringing this over. It's going over. And then saying no, Starfield's not one of them. Neither is Indiana Jones. I think that kind of highlights the fact that these major ones, this is what we said, these major ones are the ones that you need to have as your standout. This is a reason to invest in the Xbox ecosystem by itself, not Game Pass. Because I've mentioned this before. Although Game Pass is great for us folks who know about it, the marketing around Game Pass is dreadful worldwide. If you talk to a casual consumer, nobody knows what Game Pass is. Nobody does. It relies on word of mouth.
Yeah.
It relied on me or Boxy or other people to go around and viral market it for them, because if we didn't, it wouldn't get people invested in it. Games like Call of Duty, which they've said they all studios, all games of all studios they own will go into Game Pass day one. So games like Call of Duty going into there will absolutely have a good effect on it if they market it correctly. The one thing I wish they hammered them down on is the marketing. But that's not something the community pushes back on enough.
Because you as a community member don't have anything. We don't gain directly anything, or if they have marketing or not. Marketing is anyway not for us hardcore gamers, not the people that are watching and listening here now with us. We are hardcore gamers. We don't need marketing. We don't make our purchase decisions based off a billboard that we see at the train station. It's just not happening. But it generates brand awareness in the casuals. It generates what Sony has achieved with it is that it's a synonym with playing video games. Here in Germany, a lot of people don't say, "Oh, I'm going to play video games this weekend." They just say, "I'm going to be playing PlayStation this weekend," even though they play a PC game. It's just a synonym for playing a game. And that's what you do. Yeah. You generate brand awareness. So that. I see a lot of people are eased here in the chat. I have a poll asked, do you think Xbox did a good job in easing concerns? 74% said, yeah, I'm cool now. 26% said, no, they didn't address the issues. So
I can see why they would say that, because ultimately there is still going to be the question, long run, what games do they determine require going multi-platform?
Yeah.
They've touched on 2 smaller titles. They've touched on 2 service-based titles. Now, if that's the remit, and you're talking about service-based titles or smaller titles, and not your big AAA blockbuster releases, then personally, I'm more comfortable with that. Personally. Because I don't care, ultimately, if more people play an Elder Scrolls or a Sea of Thieves or something like that. Ultimately, Sea of Thieves, to me, would have been good to just keep that way. It's been there long enough. I don't believe it's going to grow too much more on other platforms. However, I can understand it being a service-based game, the direction they chose on that one. But ultimately, it still leaves the door open for people to go, but what if?
Exactly.
But what if?
That is my little thing with this. It is definitely not as bad as people made it out to be. Obviously not. Yeah, I mean, there were like rumors out there. Oh, they're abandoning the hardware completely, and we won't get the day one drops in Game Pass anymore, and we are not building consoles anymore, and we are going full third party, and that's what people thought they would tell. Yeah, it's obviously not as bad as the drama on social. I do get it from a business point of view what they are trying to do. Phil said the 4 games that they have chosen when they announce it, it's gonna make sense to us. It will make sense because they reached the height of what they can do on Xbox. But who's to say that this isn't going to be the case for other games as well in the future? This is the thing that they didn't address. Yeah, it's not just those 4 games. With those 4 games, they are testing the waters. And with those 4 games, they open the door for the discussions that might hurt the brand. Because, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to assume it's going to be Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, and Pentiment. Those 4 games are coming there.
Yeah.
Who's to say that State of Decay 3 shouldn't come to other platforms as well, because this is also an ongoing game. It's going to reach its heights rather sooner than later after release. Hi-Fi Rush is only out a year. It's not like the Sea of Thieves, which is out for 6-7 years now. It's who's to say that they don't consider that as well? And you open a door with that. You do open a door, and I wonder if the sales and the revenue you are generating by selling Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation, selling Pentiment on PlayStation, if the little revenue that you're going to make is going to be worth the brand damage that they took through the discussions they already have, and that they will going to continue to have with other games. Because it's now a fair question with every release to ask it at least once. Is Blade coming to PlayStation? Is State of Decay 3 coming to PlayStation? Is the next Doom coming to PlayStation? People will ask that question. And it is hard for me to imagine a point where this is not, even if the answer is always no, it's not coming to PlayStation. But that the question is out there alone is going to hurt you. Yeah. Because, like you said, Xbox is not advertising their ecosystem. Hang on. They are not advertising it themselves. Yeah. They let the community, us, do it, and the IGNs and Kotakus. And IGN is not going to write, oh, it's awesome that Xbox is getting the exclusive Indiana Jones. They are not going to write that article. They're going to write the article, is State of Decay 3 coming to PlayStation? Find the answer here, you know? Yeah. That alone, is that worth the few 100,000 copies you're going to sell of Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation?
Yeah.
I'm really not sure. It's
I want to touch on that before you move on as well.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that before you move on.
Please.
You made a great point there on the questioning and the door open, because ultimately we spoke on this beforehand, before they started doing all of this. And that was the question, like I say, PC players do with PlayStation games. We'll just wait. It's going to come out to PlayStation, to PC eventually. Yeah. And if that question is out there, people are going to be like, yeah, but Xbox have said this before and look what happened.
Yeah.
So why would I? So I'm just going to wait. I'll wait a year. If we haven't heard anything, then I'll get it.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, it's either dead or they forgot about it,
or overshadowed by the next new thing. That's exactly the thing. I'm not sure. I do get the point that Phil made almost to the end of the podcast, where he said, well, it is for us about growing. We are not growing anymore. I've touched on that a little bit before the podcast aired, because I think, well, they didn't really try to grow. They also.
One thing I did like about that comment as well, whilst you're on it, as you mentioned, not trying to grow, this is one thing I did like about what he said, was he doesn't want to find more ways to monetize the people he already has.
Exactly. That's
Thank
a
God
two.
for that.
Yeah, they want to reach more players, but then I don't have the feeling that they're really trying to do that. They are not. They. If you want to grow really on PC, you take the fight up with Steam. Because they have a storefront there. Make it good. Make that storefront good and sell your games there. That's when you actually want to grow.
Take a lot of work.
That takes a complete revamp. Delete this one and make a new one. But you know what I mean. And the same goes for the console ecosystem. Again, they didn't have the content up until the release of Starfield to support console growth. They don't market it. And so you can't expect to grow. But that's obviously they have their reasons to do that. They must be sitting in the boardroom and saying, okay, it's not worth spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing, or even billions on marketing. They must have a reason for that. I do get it. It's just from the outside, to me, it feels that way. So Phil said, obviously, and I think that was I'm not sure if I liked his statement about, look at what the industry did. Even though great games came out, all those studios had to fire people. This took it to, like, from okay, this is our business strategy, to if we don't bring Sea of Thieves to PlayStation, we're gonna have to fire more people. It's like, I'm not sure if I liked that argument. I do get it. I do get it. It is an industry-wide problem, and we've discussed it multiple times on this podcast. It's not just Xbox; it's everyone. Embracer just reported that last year they laid off 1,400 people, and that in an organization that is significantly smaller than the Xbox division with ABK and Bethesda and everything. It is an industry-wide problem. Take-Two layoffs. Everyone. Sony had the layoffs. Everyone had them. It is a problem. But addressing that as the reason to why you bring games to other platform, which obviously the community doesn't like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But how did you feel about that?
I understand where he was trying to go with touching on having to reduce headcounts and the industry as a whole having issues, but I don't think he linked it well with, as you mentioned, the entire point of the discussion was talking on the roadmap of Xbox. Had he said, just generalized, okay, the market has stagnated. We experienced ourselves one of the toughest things last year. We had to let a lot of people go. This is in no reflection as to why we're doing X, Y, and Z. This is just generalized. The market hit a low point, and we need to find ways of growing outside of just porting games. We need to also look at alternate options of how to play games. So whether that be additional hardware types, and then touched on, said Sarah, and then she could have went, oh yeah, and Holiday will be talking about. I think the method in which that they kind of touched on certain points were probably not extrapolated the wrong way, because I think we've took them the way that they sounded, but they were put across the wrong way. I don't think he personally intended to say we're going to bring Sea of Thieves and all of these games across to the consoles because of what happened last year, but that's the way it sounded. That's the way it kind of came out.
I'm just saying, bringing the layoffs into this conversation. It has a taste to it. Let me briefly shout out Dave Ramos for a $5 super chat. Super appreciate that, man. He says, business can legally collude if they do so in public. Sony knows Xbox plans now and can follow suit in 3 years if they want. Permanently change market.
I mean, Sony are as much as this is what I mean, not even just Jim Ryan, but Sean Layden said beforehand. He said, listen, we're not going to grow beyond X. Like, we have pretty much capped out at our limit as to what we can do with console. Yeah. We're not growing the console, we're staying the same. So, and this is what a lot of the PlayStation guys don't seem to understand as well, is it's pointless reporting on these console sales all the time, because you had 140 million or 125 plus million PlayStation 4s. You've got 50 million PlayStation 5s. You now don't have 124 million PlayStation 4s. You've took 50 million out of those and they're on PlayStation 5. So you're just moving the bracket. Okay, now we have 50 million of our previous players on the next console. What we need to do is get the rest of those players migrated onto this console, and we've got the same amount of players as we have last gen. There isn't growth. It's just you're growing, you're getting those players transitioned from the previous gen over to your next gen quicker than you did the previous generation.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there isn't a growth in the console segment.
Still the same
and
users.
PlayStation know that, yeah. And PlayStation know that. They haven't grown their user amount at all.
Yeah. It's just
it's
transitioning
marginal.
over.
Yeah,
and
transition.
that is the thing. And I mean,
they need to do what Xbox are doing anyway. And this is why we spoke about Sony before we started this, because Sony's CFO, COO, and COO, same guy, said exactly the same thing. He said, we need to start being more aggressive and going multi-platform. And for them, multi-platform is PC right now. Whether they choose the strategy of porting specific games over to different platforms, we know they've got Bungie's that is going multi-plat. So they do have a singular other one that we know is multi-plat. But whether or not they choose other service-based games themselves and go, listen, that would actually be, for us, financially better to be everywhere. If they do their games as a service plan, then they will do that. And I ultimately think if they do intend on following suit with a games as a service segment, they would be stupid not to put that everywhere as a games as a service game. However, both of these platforms require their single-player narrative games ultimately to stay within their own boxed ecosystems to have differentiators. But both of them will look at ways to maneuver in the market in order to grow their money and their player base beyond the boxed segments that are tapped out. Xbox would have to do something dramatic to win over someone that's on PlayStation now, because they're that invested in that ecosystem. It would take literally them burning down a PlayStation in order to get them to switch over. It would be remarkable for them to get a significant chunk of PlayStation players away from PlayStation into the Xbox ecosystem. So Xbox know, because of their failure last generation, that they are unable to grow the console market where they would love to.
See,
PlayStation, on the other hand, also have tapped out as much as they can do.
Yeah.
Because they're just transitioning from one side to the other. So they also know, what can we do? PlayStation. We haven't really tapped into the PC market yet. We've started dabbling. We've had huge success on the second-party game recently. We've had relative success on the first-party stuff that's come after the fact on PC. But day and date is really the next one they need to target, and they need to start bringing these titles as and when they release on PlayStation onto PC, because they will have the monetary benefits of that. So that is their change. Xbox, on the other hand, are already everywhere. They've already got your mobile. They've already got the PC. They've already got the Xbox.
See, that's my thing with this. But basically, Xbox is already everywhere. And I mean, that's what they emphasized a lot. We are actually not really changing our strategy. We are already everywhere. You can play us on basically every screen you have. Yeah, thanks to, Sarah said it, thanks to our investment in cloud gaming, you can play it anywhere you want already. You can do that today already. So that's not really the only thing where you can't play it is obviously directly on the console of the two competitors, Nintendo and PlayStation. It's the only two devices you can't play Xbox games on, and everything else. So the question really is, how much can you grow by putting games on PlayStation? And I do have to disagree with one thing you touched on.
Well,
I do agree that
you can't always
that
agree.
PlayStation, I do agree that what you said about the PlayStation install base, that they are basically only transitioning over from PS4 to PS5 generations and really growing. I totally agree there. With Xbox, I think it is hard to move over customers from PlayStation into the Xbox ecosystem. And Matt Booty touched on that. Yeah, 2 reasons he said. First is, of course, where are your friends? Yeah, that's the one thing. And the other question is, where is your stuff, your library? And at least the library problem, you can solve that to a degree with Game Pass. Because if you are invested now in only in PlayStation, you want to transition over to Xbox, usually you would boot up the console and you have no games to play. And then you have to go out and buy every game, which is different now. Thanks to Game Pass, you boot up Xbox. Even though you haven't bought a single game on Xbox ever before, you have access to more than 500 games already. And if those games are now attractive, and that's the thing that Xbox was lacking for many years. They didn't have these, the Hellblades, the Avoweds, the Starfields, the Indiana Jones. But now that they do have that, I think there is a chance to actually move those over. I'm not sure if they will succeed this gen, though. I'm really not sure. And of course, the longer they wait, Phil touched on that, where are people building their digital libraries? It will be harder to leave the PlayStation ecosystem. Nonetheless, I think if they would have started the generation as they actually promised, by having the power narrative and by having actual games, like 2, 3, 4 games every year, they would have had that this at the start of this gen, we would be looking at different market share right now. I truly believe that. So I don't know if that will happen next gen. But I do feel that Xbox has the chance. But they have to change a couple of things. The marketing is the one aspect we always touch upon, and that is true. And the other thing is just be consistent and have quality content, which they simply didn't have. And
one thing I think they need to do, touching on that subject, when you talk about consistent messaging, any game that is announced from now on, even if it has an inkling of coming to PlayStation or Nintendo, from the off, and they know this, they need to say it the moment that game is announced. So if that game is in intention, so coming to Xbox and such day one, coming to PlayStation fall 25, there we go. Problem solved. You know that game is going. And if it doesn't have that message on the next title you're saying, it just says coming to Xbox, and that's it, and not coming to play. Like, doesn't have the little message saying coming to PlayStation X date. You know that game is exclusive, and that's a simple little marketing thing that they can do there, specifically to them, to stop the question of whether this game is coming or not.
I totally agree, but I don't think that Xbox is capable in doing that.
Of course they won't. That's what this is what we're talking about, the messaging issue that we even just now. The fact that it's even being questioned and had to be addressed publicly leaves the door open, especially now that 4 titles are going over. It leaves the door open for that question to be asked every time. And the only way that can resolve it is at point of announcement of those games, you reiterate the intent of where that is being played. Whether or not that is immediately available everywhere, or whether or not it's coming to the other platforms at a later date, you immediately address that at point of reveal. You don't leave it until it's been out a year and then go, by the way, because then that's just...
Agree. I totally do agree. Yeah. So what I did notice, Dutch, a lot of their messaging was around stuff that their competitors don't have.
Yes, it was.
I think I've never heard so many times in an Xbox executive interview, hey, you know that we have cross save and we have cloud saves and we have cross progression. And yeah, that was mentioned like 5 times from Phil, from Matt, from Sarah. Everyone mentioned that multiple times. I noticed that they also mentioned, of course, heavily, we have Game Pass and our games are coming day and date, and and we have the capability to you have the chance or the ability to play your games already today anywhere you want. So they were like heavily focused around that messaging, what they have that PlayStation and Nintendo don't. And I found that very interesting because this is of course the thing that they needed to address with this podcast. Why invest in an Xbox?
Yeah,
and I think that's still a good thing that came out of this. Again, I'm still not a fan because with these 4 games they opened the door for the questioning, and it is what it is. It is a test run for them. If that's successful, other games will follow. It's just a fact, and we can't really do much about it, but we will have that discussion around every game. But the good thing around this is really that they emphasized on what makes Xbox as an ecosystem strong and good. And I still feel very comfortable investing into it. I was not one of those hyperbolic guys beforehand, and I'm not afterwards, that says, I'm not going to invest now in the Xbox ecosystem. It didn't give me a reason to do that, because at the very end of the day, that's actually true what they said. It's the convenience that Xbox offers. It's that I can, without paying for it, and without doing anything, like on PlayStation, you kind of have to manually go into the options, turn on auto upload of save files, and you can only do that if you have PS Plus, and if you cancel your PS Plus, those save files are gone, and shit like that. We don't have that in an Xbox ecosystem. You just save in a game, and you don't have to worry about syncing your save files. Cross progression, as a big fan of the Rock Alley, I've been playing actually also a lot of Starfield lately again, going back and forth in between the console and the Ally. Awesome stuff. I love that about the Xbox ecosystem. We have a lot of people in our community. I can also see the comments. Like to play cloud, and they carry their save files there with them. The seamless ecosystem I still like that about Xbox, no matter whether Sea of Thieves comes to PlayStation. And I like the value proposition that they give me with Game Pass. It's awesome. It's still the best value in gaming. Nothing about that has changed. Nothing about that is going to change. And I think that's still the things that make the Xbox ecosystem a great place to play your games. And they were heavily focusing on that messaging. Doesn't matter. Again,
not only that,
two
I want to add
sides
to that
to
very
it.
quickly.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I want to add to that quickly. They did also, with the best place to play, reiterate how important the hardware aspect of that is for them as well. Saying that hardware is not only not going anywhere, but they view it as a key component in pushing developers to make bigger and better worlds.
Actually, I want to quote something from Sarah on that. So she said, pardon me, she said 2 things. New hardware this holiday. I mean, we all know, we've seen the leaks. It's going to be the Xbox Series X Slim, or whatever it's going to be called, but it's a Slim of the Series X. But then she mentioned the next gen is going to be the biggest hardware leap we have ever seen.
And I also think, and it's hardware announcements, by the way, so I think you could see that handheld
controller. You think we will see this holiday the handheld?
Yep.
See, I've been discussing this with Boom and Mav and Pong in the.
The funny thing is everything that they've
The other
mentioned,
day?
everything that all the leaks and all the rumors and things like that, everything they've mentioned about this handheld is exactly what we spoke about with the hardware team at
Yeah.
Gamescom.
It's so true.
So it does not surprise me in the slightest that
This is
they're super powerful, as powerful as your console,
Yeah.
hardware, handheld. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
And I'm really not sure because everyone thinks, okay, they're going to release that Xbox handheld
I don't think they'll
along
release
with
it,
next gen.
but I think they'll announce it in holiday. I think they'll announce it in holiday.
I know what you said.
Yeah.
I think, but everyone assumes that the Xbox handheld will be the Series S of next gen. You know, you will have the regular home console and you will have the Switch-like Xbox handheld that can be played as a dock mode and is going to be cheaper. And everyone assumes that the handheld launches along with the next gen. It's a next gen device, you know? I'm not sure about that. I'm really not sure because they see the massive success of handhelds, gaming handhelds right now. They've seen that the Steam Deck sold out of the gate more than 10 million devices. That a little refresh like the OLED screen does wonders in sales. They see the success of the Asus ROG Ally. They see the success of the Lenovo's, the Legion Go's, and so on. We have this resurgence of handhelds right now. We don't have that in 3 years. In 3 years, this market is when next gen actually launches, you know, 26, 27. This market is already probably a little bit too saturated. I'm really not sure if they don't intend to make the handheld for this gen still.
Yeah, I think they will, yeah. I think they'll make it for this gen. But I think we could see another version of a handheld next gen also.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
absolutely. Yeah. But I think absolutely they will test the waters with making something that is potentially Series X level for the remainder of this gen.
Series S
in terms of its power output. Do you think S or do you think X?
Listen, bro, mobile on a Series X level, no way is this going to be a portable console.
But you say that though. No. And in terms of you're talking about the capabilities of the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck.
Yeah, well, the Steam Deck is a little bit older hardware, but if you look at the best performing handhelds right now, which is basically the Lenovo and the Ally, they have the same AMD chip. And even though, it's RDNA 3 and it is Zen 3 CPU in there, it is nowhere not even remotely close to what a Series X can do. And those,
not on your hands, of course, but
also not in docked mode, bro. And also not in docked mode. They both have the docked mode as well. Yeah, when you have like it docked and then you can turn up, you can play Starfield at medium settings then. But it's not.
I think it'll be a smidge more powerful than the Series S, at least. It has to be. I don't think they'll just go straight Series S.
If they get the power, they can't do a different SKU. It has to be, if they are going to do it for this gen, it has to be one of the two SKUs. They cannot add a third SKU for developers to support. I don't see it. It's gonna be Series S or Series X. And that's all, of course, also assuming that they are not going for a Windows device, because that is the easier thing for them to do, you know?
It is, but the Xbox UI would solve so many problems with that problem. We've said it as well. We said it as well. We specifically reiterated to them, if it's going to be a handheld, it needs to be a native Xbox UI, not Windows. It needs to be straight up being able to play native games on your handheld, not cloud streaming. Native games on your handheld.
I totally agree, and it's not just because of the hassle that is Windows, which is I love my I love my Ally, but it sucks that it runs Windows because you always have to deal with the Windows updates and the driver updates and the Asus updates and this update, and it sucks. However, the bigger problem is, of course, the third-party problem. When you want to play Suicide Squad, where do you buy it? Do you buy it on PC, Steam, or do you buy it on console? And because if I buy it on PC, I can play it on the alley and can take it on the Windows handheld to go. If I buy it on the console, I can take it with me on the go. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And since there are already so many PC handhelds out there is really no point in throwing in just another Windows handheld.
Yeah.
I truly wish that they have the same OS, the console OS and UI, and then you have like the games that you buy on your console also available on your handheld. That would be the thing that everyone wants. And I have the feeling that they are going to do it, especially after our conversations that we had at Gamescom, like you said. And I don't think it's going to be the next gen, for next gen. I believe that this is going to be a this gen thing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to test the waters this gen with their native Xbox handheld. Next gen, I see them potentially doing an inline. Okay, we're going to do two platforms, exactly the same power output. One of them's going to be a handheld. The other one's going to be the actual console. The only issue, and I've said this before, we said this to them as well. The only issue I see is the more power you input into this thing is the more power it will require, i.e. the battery life is a severe issue with all handhelds.
And that's why the handheld console will, and to this day, there is no handheld out there that comes even close to the power in a proper docked console. It's simply power consumption. That is not there.
That's the issue they would have to get around if they did opt.
Why would you do that? They have two SKUs now. In next gen, you launch the one SKU is the handheld SKU, and the other one is a proper beefy home console. Yeah, and then you have like the two SKU thing again. Yeah, one is the Switch-like thing that you can dock and to play on your go, and the other one is your hardware-hungry console. I believe that this would be the way to go. And at least they hinted at something like that. Again, Sarah said it's going to be the biggest hardware leap that we will see with next gen ever. Well, they've said this every time with the One X.
Well, to be fair, for
Series
consoles,
X,
for consoles, they usually are. But the problem is that they don't. As soon as they're announced and released, they're already out of date.
Yeah.
So that is guaranteed by the time these consoles release, we'll have went from RDNA 2 to RDNA 5 or 6 by the time they release. Yeah. And then, of course, you're talking about the Zen processors in them as well, and how much they'll have extended. And then you're talking about just generalized the RAM capabilities. Are we eventually jumping out of that 16 gig limitation to 32 gig? And I think that is the ultimate one to really press on next gen, would be to just stop boxing in developers with this limitation of 16 gig and push out the memory availability on these platforms. It needs to happen in order to make sure that they can actually extend their worlds and get the most out of their development cycle. Give them the memory bandwidth in order to do that. I've never to this day understood why every gen we end up with the same memory. Like, why is it still 12 or 16 gig? Like, that's the first thing you change when you build a computer. You like get rid of the 16 and go straight up to 32 or more, because that is the one thing that gives you unbelievable amount of headroom when it comes to processing and game performance. So those are the key things. Anyway, we don't want to kind of go too far off the topics, but hardware announcements this holiday. Alongside that,
by the way, I don't think they are going to announce it this holiday. This holiday is for the Series X Slim and the new controller, and that's the hardware we are getting this.
I'm looking forward to the new controller, man. But
agree.
Fingers crossed.
But again, like you said, let's not strive off too far because there's still a lot of things to cover. It felt they announced the Diablo 4 drop on March 28th, and it kind of felt to me like we all knew that it will come eventually. Now we get a date. Cool. I bought Diablo 4 already twice. I bought it on console and PC. So it's
When's
still
the
cool.
expansion coming out?
Yeah, around that time.
Ah, that's why. That makes sense.
Hang on. Release date for late. No, Vessel of Hatred is announced for late 2024. Yeah.
Late 24s, yeah. So it gives enough people to get into Game Pass, play Diablo, get through the campaign, the ones that haven't picked it up yet.
Yeah.
The expansion's out. More people can buy the expansion because more people are playing it on Game Pass. Makes absolute sense that they've dropped it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. But yeah, it was a little bit like a sweetener for
so
sorry,
hey, we gotta give you guys something, you know.
Yeah.
And I wonder. I mean, don't get me wrong, Diablo 4, awesome, amazing game in my top 3 of last year. I love this game.
Campaign anyway, the campaign, fantastic.
Also, the
season
post,
1,
not too bad for season 1. Yeah, but honestly, season 2 right now, fantastic, bro. It's really good. So, what was I about to say? Yeah, man, a lot of people also want the other Activision games in there. They want the Call of Duties. They want the legacy titles, you know, Tony Hawk, Spyro, and Crash, and all that stuff also in there. No mentioning of that.
The only thing they mentioned was all first-party games will go on Xbox Game Pass day 1.
Forever.
Now,
always. It will always come, they said.
No, with that in mind, does that start with Call of Duty this fall?
That is a very good question. They really didn't say
because
that.
If every first party, and technically they are first party now.
Actually, they literally said that. Every first party game will always come to Game Pass day 1.
Yep. So therefore, does that mean Call of Duty will be in Game Pass day 1 this winter?
Know.
And they didn't really clarify that because we know the contractual commitments that Sony had with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So is that an indication that Call of Duty is Game Pass day 1 this holiday?
I don't know.
In which case then they can advertise it as such?
Technically, you could do that.
Yep.
What do you guys think in the chat here? Let us know. We definitely want to know what you guys think.
Quick shout out to Iron Lords who've just raided. Welcome the Iron Lords. How are you doing all? Thank you very much for that. You're going to get into the good part because I'm going to have a rant near the end here. But outside of announcing, of course, that everything is definitively going to Game Pass day 1, Matt Booty had a little conversation here about these games and games this year specifically. And he mentioned 10 big releases this year for Xbox, including Indiana Jones and Hellblade and Aura, etc. And that some are still in development and will be announced in June. So 10 big releases. Now that's a big change from the 4 we knew of. Massive change. 4 big announcements to 10 big games this year.
Yeah.
That's a big one to drop on you to say.
And they were heavily teasing at the very end the June showcase, right? I mean, more games to be announced in June. Obviously, that's what the June showcase does. We will see more games. But 10. I mean, they already counted like expansions and stuff, but still, it's a lot. And obviously, we don't know everything just yet. You think there's anything bigger in there? In those unknown games?
yeah, there's a good possibility that there is some bigger ones in there. I mean, do they have the likes of a Fable ready this year?
No,
No.
Fable.
Do they have the likes of a Forza Horizon ready this year?
That's a possibility. That it definitely is one.
And then we don't know. We still don't know to this day. Do we have id Tech games ready this year?
No,
Like a Doom or a
No.
Quake?
no.
We don't know this because obviously no one's mentioned them as yet.
Yeah, I don't think.
But again, as we know Bethesda's track record notoriously of just going, here's the announcement, it's ready, like it's available in a couple of months' time. Bethesda like doing that as a company.
See,
So we don't know, but it's an interesting one. But again, as you mentioned, having announced, okay, we're going to have this expansion and so on and so forth, they're clearly kind of saying these expansions count.
yeah,
But we don't have that many expansions really lined up. We've got 2. We've got Diablo and we've got Starfield.
true.
So it's 2. So yeah, it's intriguing, but there was kind of overall negative points and good points about the entire thing. The good points is it was absolutely overblown, like to grievous extents by the media, that everything is going multi-platform, it's all going third party, the biggest titles are going everywhere. People lost their mind. They had absolute meltdowns, started throwing things about and being childish and pretending like these big executives were their best friend and that they'd stabbed them in the back and all of this stuff. It was just absolutely insane to see people have meltdowns as grown adults.
Yeah.
I intentionally kept my mouth shut for the vast majority because it was embarrassing as somebody in the community to watch people behave the way they did over plastic boxes, over a corporation who's choosing to make money. They are, no matter I'm going to be absolutely blunt. I'm friends with Aaron Greenberg. I'm friends with numerous people at Xbox directly. I've known them for years. Do I hold him personally responsible for the decisions of a corporation and my personal satisfaction with Xbox? Absolutely not. He is not personally responsible. He has a job to do, which is separate from the friendship that we have separately.
Yeah.
Do I go to him and publicly lambast him for his job role? Ultimately, no, because that's his job at the end of the day. He's working for a corporation that wants to make games and sell games and sell it to the consumer, and they want to do what is in the business's best interests in order to grow and be profitable. That is not a personal reflection on him and or our friendship. And anyone who started getting crazy on social media believing that because they're friends with somebody at a corporation, it means that they're personally responsible for their mental health and their well-being going forwards and what they view as something else, and that they need to take a step back off social media and ultimately just chill the fuck out, because it's ridiculous. Like, you're an adult, act like one. This is a gaming company. We're here to play games. If these companies decide that every game is going multi-platform, it's ultimately up to you whether or not you choose to invest in that. But it's not something that you should have a mental breakdown about.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Mobile phones. Imagine if, like, all of a sudden everything was available on every mobile phone, and some Apple fanboy was like, "Well, I'm just going to throw my Apple away because now the Apple place is available on Samsung." Like, imagine if Apple Arcade is now available on Samsung. Imagine if they started having breakdowns like that. It would just look equally as ridiculous. So why are we doing it now? Like, I can understand people are concerned about the money that they've invested in a platform. Like, okay, I've bought an Xbox, I've got a massive Xbox ecosystem, and I've got loads of games that are on my back catalogue, and I'm concerned that if this goes the way it is and they aren't profitable, that I'm not going to be able to access my games going forward, or is the console in itself going forward isn't going to be there. it's a concern to have as a consumer. Okay, what's the benefit to me?
Yeah.
How is this going to benefit me going forward? As a consumer, you need to know what the benefits are to you in order to depend on where you're going to invest your money.
What we said earlier, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
care about whether Microsoft makes more money or Sony makes more money or any of
couldn't give
those
a shit.
companies makes more money. We care about what are the benefits for us as gamers, as consumers, as customers. That's what we care about, and I think we've definitely seen that on the social channels that a lot of people take it way too personal. You can be concerned, and I addressed my concerns earlier. I also have my concerns about whether consoles itself. I'm not concerned that Xbox is going out of business, but I fear that in the console space we won't have enough competition. That is my concern. You can have concerns. You can be happy with certain decisions of company or not. But having these kind of mental breakdowns online is. It is what it is. And as for this business update, it was obviously it isn't as bad as it was. They still make hardware, strong commitments. Sarah said, biggest leap we will ever see with the next gen. Matt Booty was and Sarah and Phil, they all were very clear. Every game will still come to Game Pass day one, always. Like you said, speculation out there. Maybe it's Call of Duty, even this year. If you take them literally, it should come to Game Pass. However, we will see. My thing is putting 4 games over there is going to open up Pandora's box for discussion with every game. And honestly, I usually don't quote people directly on the podcast because it's always like finger pointing. I want to put one tweet from Tom Warren. He did that right after the podcast ended out there, and that shows you what we will get thanks to this change of strategy from now on from everyone. And I actually like Tom Warren. You can imagine what IGN and Kotaku is going to do, but he tweeted out, Xbox chief Phil Spencer doesn't rule out Starfield and Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation 5. He quotes him, I don't think we should as an industry ever rule out a game going to any other platform. Link to the full interview. That's the kind of discussion, even though they literally said on the podcast, no, it's not going to be Starfield and it's not going to be Indiana Jones. We already have people coming out there, but Xbox isn't ruling it out completely. Like, literally, they said it in this podcast. No, it's not Starfield and it's not Indiana Jones. And 1 minute later, we get the first article. Xbox chief Phil Spencer doesn't rule out Starfield and Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation 5 completely. I don't know what else to do. You know what I mean? And that's my thing with
leaving
this.
The door open and it's causing issues. And this is the thing we spoke about beforehand and now, and when we just finished talking about it, is the issue with Xbox is always messaging. It always has been messaging, and it always will be messaging, because they say one thing, they do another. They say one thing here, and then they do another thing right here, and it's always been that way.
Yeah,
and that's Xbox's biggest downfall, is their messaging is all over the place. Like, you've just came onto a podcast that you've put out specifically to address rumors and said it's 4 games, 2 are live service, 2 are smaller. We've already concluded it's probably going to be Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush. Okay. And he said, okay, are they Starfield? And he said, no, it's not Starfield and it's not Indiana Jones. Right. Okay. So those games aren't going multi-platform. And then, of course, as you said, the Verge article, they've asked him a little bit more direct messaging and said, so do you rule it out? He's like, no, we'll never ever rule out any game coming to any platform. So that, again, mixed messaging. So it doesn't mean that it is going over, but it also leaves the door open for people questioning it every time a game comes out. And they need to start getting better with their messaging. If this game isn't going across, don't say, you never know, because no, it's yes or a no, not you never know. It's yes or no. It's pointless thinking about, okay, in 7 years' time, we're going to eventually port Starfield over, because what is the point? what is the point?
And
No one cares.
let's be
by that
real.
point.
Let's be real. They kind of opened the door for that because
Yeah.
they said, okay, we are putting 4 games now, and it's only for the 4 games for now. Yeah, we don't have any plans for Starfield or Indiana Jones right now. We don't have those plans, and it might be true. But yeah, who's to say that State of Decay 3 doesn't come over? Once that's out for a year or two on Xbox and it has reached its player peaks there, why not bring that over? And then the next Doom or the next, never know. You know what I mean? And this is a discussion that will not end right now. And I just do hope. Xbox is struggling with the console ecosystem anyway. And we talked about the reasons for that earlier, yeah? They are not behind it really. They don't support it outside of the US, no marketing and all that stuff, yeah? That's why they don't grow the console ecosystem. They didn't have content for too long, and that's why they don't grow on the console. But they are still PlayStation's biggest competitor in the console space, and I do hope that this new strategy and all those articles that will be written by IGN and Kotaku and you name it, that those articles will not lead to Xbox being less competitive in the console space.
Yeah.
Because that's when we really don't benefit from as gamers. It might be successful because they make the money back on PC and on PlayStation or wherever they sell their games, and that's cool. They're gonna be fine business-wise. But as gamers, we need a stronger Xbox console for in order that they can compete with PlayStation. And I'm not sure if that step here is the step in this direction.
Yeah. I was going to say, ultimately, the reason I was getting so annoyed with a lot of people as well, that was like so absolutely adamant that, I don't care if Xbox goes full multiplat because more people get to play more games. The kumbaya bullshit was winding me up significantly because when you're talking specifically business, and again, we both work in corporate businesses, so we know how corporations work, corporate corporations that are.
No.
The only way corporate companies actually remain competitive is if they are competing with each other and they're innovating. Now, the only way you stand out as a corporation and competes, so the other one starts innovating to try and beat you, and you innovate to try and beat him, and you get more. The only way you do that is if both of you are consistently trying to fight for that.
And we
now,
had
if
that.
Xbox stops that, and they do no, and they did go full third party, that isn't a good thing for the gamer. As much as people like to think it is, because if more people get to play, that's not a good thing, because that means Xbox are not competing anymore against, like, for anything. Why would you invest in Xbox outside? A subscription service isn't going to be everybody's buy-in for a console. You might get 10 million people from a subscription service. Great. Okay. So outside of that, what is the reason to invest in Xbox if all of their games are on a multiple platform? That was never going to be a good idea because there isn't a competition there. There is no compete. And everyone's, but then somebody puts out the more powerful hardware than the other one. Yeah, but ultimately, the more powerful hardware is PC. So you would go to PC.
Yeah.
If you wanted power, if you were really adamant you wanted power, you wouldn't be on console.
Yeah.
You would be on PC. So if you're literally going down to the compete factor, the best thing for everybody is for PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo to continue to compete by providing exclusive reasons for you to invest in their ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it has always been both on a Microsoft
exclusives
level,
are that reason.
Level.
Exclusives are that reason.
Software is all, even in my business, software is a reason. Like, I work in the energy business, and specifically in the energy business, one of the key things that sets our business aside from another is a software that we have that nobody else has, that we've worked specifically with the grid in order to make. And that is a monitoring software that allows to go down into individual bits of machinery within a workplace. So you can monitor things on the fly and every second of every day to know what your consumption figures are and pinpoint inaccuracies or problems. That is something that nobody else in the industry does. That is what you class as a USP or a unique selling point. And platforms, competitors, and competition needs unique selling points. A subscription service isn't a unique selling point because everyone has a subscription service. Regardless of how good that subscription service is, they all have them. It's not a unique selling point. We have our games day and date. Great. Can you still buy your games on that platform? Yes. Okay, then I don't care because it's still available.
And see, and that's the thing we want, because I see the discussion in the chat about, they are not just competing with Sony, they are competing with every other developer. Yes and no. The problem is what you're looking at. Again, totally makes sense from Xbox's perspective, from a business perspective. You want to make more money, you're going to do that. But what we want is a strong competition in the console space. And that's the thing. There are only two competitors in the console space. That's Nintendo and that's Sony. And Nintendo really isn't. They are somewhere else, It's like they have their own bubble. So it is Xbox and it is PlayStation. And if anyone,
I was going to say Nintendo also prove that power doesn't mean a fucking thing.
And the thing is the good things that Xbox has done over the last years for the console ecosystem, when they introduced backwards compatibility in 2015, they introduced xCloud and they in 2017 and Game Pass in 2017 already. It's like Game Pass isn't really a new thing anymore. Yeah, it's like out there for 7 years or so. So we have the cross progression, thing. The cross progression, cross save, everything, all that good stuff that we like about the Xbox ecosystem. We wouldn't have had that if they wouldn't have tried to beat PlayStation,
Yeah.
And and you see what PlayStation did at the beginning of this gen. They came out, increased the game prices. Who does that? It does. A market leader that doesn't feel threatened by his competition does stuff like that.
That's the thing you'd see more of if there wasn't a competing platform against them.
Exactly.
It's bad enough now if there wasn't a Microsoft doing something that was trying to be consumer.
Yeah,
they would continue to do that. They would put them up to $80 or $90 because they can, not because it's consumer friendly or it's making them more money. It's because there's nobody to stop them. There's nobody to counter that argument. So you're absolutely right on that front. They would.
So
they have no. It's already bad enough as it is with Microsoft being weak competition.
Exactly, and that is the thing. What I want is a stronger competition for Microsoft in the console space. Because not only do I want Microsoft to do better, I also have a PlayStation and I'm a PlayStation customer and I want PlayStation to do better by me. And I feel like that is what is missing there. I've said it so many times, PlayStation, as much as I like the brand, I did not like what they have become under Jim Ryan. Come out, have the audacity to start the next gen with increased game prices, straight out lying to your customer base, We believe in generations, the SSD magic of the SSD and all that shit. You know what I mean? And then really not delivering anymore. Like we talked about the empty roadmap earlier and all that stuff, and still being like the biggest market leader out there. And I don't like that. It's not good for us gamers. And so I want Microsoft to have a stronger console ecosystem. I get it from their perspective. Software makes money if you scale it. And I just do hope that it does not, that they have opened the door now, and that is what they did with this. It's nothing big that is going to change right now. For us, nothing is going to change. We will get a next gen console. We will get the Xbox Series X Slim this holiday season. We get awesome games day one in Game Pass. All good. We are all good right now. And I just hope that by them opening the door for those 4 games, whatever they are, again, I believe Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush, but whatever those 4 games are, that it is worth it to take the risk to have this dreadful discussion with every game that they are going to announce and release. Is it going to come? And that this will not hurt the already relatively weak console install base. I just hope that. And that is my concern. Other than that, really not much has changed. We got a few nice teasers about next-gen hardware. We got a few nice teasers about more games coming this year and an exciting June showcase. All cool. Diablo 4, for those who don't own it, gonna come to Game Pass in March.
Yeah.
All good messaging. But yeah, that's basically my summary.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
How would you summarize this entire thing before we move on to the community questions, man?
Yeah, I mean, it was that's a good summary, to be fair. I think we've already touched on it as well. They're talking about the market stagnation and job losses across the industry. Sounded like it was a kind of justification as to why they're bringing games to other platforms when it felt a bit iffy, kind of using that as a reason. Aside from that, like I said, I mentioned it was good scripted questioning because I think they hit on key points. She reiterated a few things intentionally, said, right, okay, but I know we've mentioned it, but we need to kind of touch on this again. Like, can you clarify this? And then pecked on them a couple of times for that. So that was good to know. I want to highlight a few messages, kind of super chats as well that have come in since the raid. So thanks for that again. JD Gamer with a $2 with the ILP raid. Thank you, JD Gamer. Next one was from David Hotwright with a $10. And he said, sending love from the ILP. Keep up the great work, Dutch. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. And then another one that's come in, that's good questioning. And we actually touched on this before these chaps come in the chat here. Putting matured games like Grounded and Sea of Thieves on PlayStation then sets an expectation for the PlayStation or non-matured games as a service games. Now, we mentioned this actually in Sony's strategy that we touched on at the beginning of the show was how we believe as well, because of how aggressive he was with his messaging, the CFO/COO, about needing to essentially grow the monetization capabilities and grow the outreach of PlayStation beyond the console. Things like PC. Obviously, we fully think that PC will be day and date going forward for PlayStation. But games as service titles, I also personally wouldn't put them past also being multi-platform going forwards. We know that Bungie's Bungie's next title is going to be multi-plat. We know that. But in terms of games as a service title,
but that was part of the agreement for the acquisition, basically, that they will be able to do still Multiplat as Bungie. But I don't think that anything else.
But there was also
day
like
and
a little
date PC,
in there.
absolutely. Day and date, absolutely. But I'm not sure if they would bring games like, I don't know, Helldivers to Xbox.
Yeah. Well, no, well, I don't. It depends. It really depends. If, and again, it won't be straight away. But if like Xbox have found out with the likes of Sea of Thieves and Grounded, we've capped out at how many players we're getting here. We've like this is as many players as we're getting here. And it's a games as a service title. It makes, especially if you've got monetization built in there, it makes absolute sense to bring it to additional platforms.
Yeah.
Like the vast majority of Xbox's biggest games as a service titles, Elder Scrolls Online, for instance, Sea of Thieves now, quite possibly, quite potentially, being another one. They've got Minecraft, again, being one of their biggest games as a service titles. These things are multi-plat. And for that reason, they have monetization capabilities that will far extend beyond the console and a player base that can potentially grow beyond the console. that's why they're doing it. Single player games don't have that outreach because there is no additional benefit beyond the initial sale of making money. So it doesn't make as much sense. So I can't see PlayStation ever releasing their actual first party single player games on any other platform. But their games as a service titles, I think it won't be a case of day one everywhere, but I can see them putting them on other platforms throughout their life cycle. I can see that happening, absolutely. Because it's money. And ultimately, if the CFO of Sony is saying, our gaming business don't know how to make money, they don't know how to plan, and they don't know how to schedule, like, that is ultimately them saying this needs to change and we need to look at ways of making more money, one of which is going to be PC and other avenues, whether that be mobile or otherwise. So he's going to be, and I said this last time as well, the last podcast, they're absolutely going to be looking at other avenues to make money. And games as a service titles are the easiest ones to go, yep, like that can be anywhere. Nobody's really going to care about a games as a service title. What they do care about is The Last of Us remains exclusive. God of War remains exclusive. Spider-Man remains these are the ones they care about. Does anybody care about Bungie's title going everywhere? Does anybody care about Helldivers going everywhere? Realistically, probably not. They're not going to wet the bed or cry themselves to sleep if those titles go everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
But they will if a first-party single-player narrative game goes everywhere. So I can't see them doing that. And again, monetarily, they wouldn't make enough money to justify the port. That's what I've been saying about these big single-player things. Yeah. It doesn't make much sense for Microsoft to do it either. Why would you port one of your single-player narrative games to PlayStation on the potential of it shifting 1 million or 2 units? Potential. Because there's no guarantees that people will pick up that game and play it. And it doesn't have a money-making beyond that. Yes, more people get to play it, but the cost of the port, which can be like 20, 30, 40 million, depending on how long it takes to port that game to the other platform, and then you have to make that back. Is the profit margin really going to be beneficial to you? Is it going to be? Yeah. Single players don't have that capability of generating additional revenue. Games as a service games do. And that's why I think they're always open for consideration, regardless of what game.
I think it will take Sony definitely a lot longer. Day and date PC, I think that will come really soon. And I would be, honestly, I said it this earlier in the podcast, I would be super surprised if the next if the next PlayStation first party game, whatever it is, whether it's Ghost of Tsushima 2 in 25 or Wolverine in 26 or whatever the next first party title is, if that wouldn't come day and date to PC. I would be honestly surprised after everything that the new CEO, acting CEO and the CFO of Sony just said the other day. Everything is going to come to PC day and date now. Honestly, and they have a lot of time to prepare for that because they don't release any first-party games this year. They also said that, and so it's not really like, okay, but for them to bring actually games to their hard competitor Xbox, I'm not sure there. This will never say never, of course, yes, but who knows what will happen in 10 years or so, but not in the near-term future. I don't think that this is going to happen on the Sony side of things. And we will see if this pays out for Xbox. It's definitely not the end of the world. And again, I think we should, as a community, a little bit focus also on the positive things that they said, because they really highlighted a lot of the things where they differentiate themselves from all the other competitive platforms. Again, they mentioned so many times cross-play, cross-save, cross-progression. They mentioned Game Pass Day 1 drops. They mentioned backwards compatibility with Auto HDR and FPS boost. And no other competitor has that stuff. And that's not going away. It's not going to change anything for us. The Xbox ecosystem is still the place to play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the other positive as well, to add to that, the major positive was, again, their reiteration about hardware. Not only are they saying hardware is not going anywhere, they're saying hardware is fundamental to pushing our developers to do what they want to do and make bigger worlds and make better worlds. So hardware is fundamental in our business plan. Also then reiterated, we have more hardware getting announced, and also the biggest leap of hardware for the next gen is also something that they spoke on. So hardware is key. You're always getting games day and date, and always getting games day and date and Game Pass. That's not changing. Hardware is always remaining and is fundamental to the business plan.
Yeah.
And a bunch of games are coming out this year. So there is a lot of positive message in there. Again, they've just, unfortunately, as much as they said it's only these 4 games, it's not Starfield, it's not Indiana Jones, it's only these 4, 2 are service-based, 2 are small. The issue is it's still leaving the door open for consideration and for people querying it.
Exactly.
I've also mentioned this before, but I want to touch on that in my chat here. Someone said, I don't think Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi will do big numbers.
Yeah,
I've said, personally, I think it would be stupid for Xbox not to speak to PlayStation and go, listen, Sea of Thieves is a service-based game. Ideally, it would probably be best suited if we put it into your subscription service, PS Plus. Can we work on something to get into PS Plus? Because ultimately, I don't think it'll shift numbers, and I think the only way that game's going to get a significant amount of players on PlayStation is if it is in a service.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to... And this is me being brutally honest about Sea of Thieves as a game, and I mentioned this in our private DMs as well. Sea of Thieves has 35 million players. The game itself has not sold 10 million across Xbox and PC.
Yeah.
So but 25 million people play it on a subscription service or have played it on a subscription service. Only 10 million have purchased it. Is that game going to make massive sales on PlayStation when it goes multiplat? No. And that's not me hating on the game, because I've played days in it. I've killed the elusive Shrouded Ghost. I've done all of the main expansions. Ultimately, it's just not a game that sells. But it is a game that people want to play if it's in a subscription service. And it's also got microtransactions that are cosmetic that people will invest in and get funky things. And if it's on PlayStation, I'll have PlayStation skins for the ship sets and stuff like that. That's where it'll make money.
Yep.
It won't sell well, though. Hi-Fi is the same. Hi-Fi ultimately is a game that dropped in Game Pass. It did really well because it was in Game Pass. But again, you'll probably get a couple of 100,000 people pick it up, maybe. Maybe. It's not going to sell loads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same for Grounded. Like, these aren't things that are going to sell mega.
And
so
I hope that these few sales are worth the
headache.
The headache we will have with every other game release. So
yeah.
Let us move over to the community questions. I think we covered most of this now. And we're almost 3 hours in. So as always, you can send in... hang on, one last thing before we go to the community questions.
Yes.
I had a poll in my chat asking whether Xbox did a good job in easing the concerns. And I'm going to close that now. 76%, 75%, said, yeah, I'm cool now. 16% said they didn't address the issue. And 8% said this was a mid business case update. So, obviously a lot, most of the community feel that they are cool now with it. That's also how I feel. It still has this, still have this concern about this ongoing discussion with every other game. But other than that, it's not the end of the world, guys, and Xbox will still be here for a while. So,
yes, Ultimately, what we learned was that, as usual, this was blown widely out of proportion.
Yes,
by media.
Oh yeah.
Little babies had a massive meltdown on social media because they thought other people were going to play Halo and Gears of War and Starfield and things like that, which was not the case. And they thought that Xbox was going full multiplat, which is not the case. And they thought their hardware was getting sold, which is not the case. And they thought that Game Pass was going to stop doing day and date, which was not the case. So ultimately, it was a big hoo-ha for very little. Like, nothing has really changed. A couple of service games are going over and 2 small titles. But the issue still remains, is the messaging is always going to be, but what if?
Yeah. True that. All right, Dutch. Let us move to the community questions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, each and every Wednesday, you guys can write in, either here on YouTube or on Twitter or wherever you want. Send us some community questions, and we got a few good ones this week. So, Charles Wilson writes in, Call of Duty day and date, probably a no. But at the same time, available day one with the subscription service from Ubisoft, is that possible? I don't think so. If Call of Duty is coming day and date, it's going to come to Game Pass day and date. I don't think it's going to come to the Ubisoft streaming thing service. Yeah.
What's the regulator's remit for the Ubisoft thing? Was that specifically for cloud? It was specifically for cloud.
Specifically for cloud, exactly, for cloud streaming. So cloud streaming rights go to Ubisoft and for the ABK stuff, and they are basically licensing it then out to Xbox or Nvidia or whoever. Yeah. So I don't think that's going to happen. But good question, nonetheless. Sith Lord writes in, I have a question you might not be able to answer, but I'm curious anyway. Who's going to win the Daytona 500 this Sunday? I have no idea. I can't really answer anything. That I feel you too.
Yeah. Nope, I have no idea either.
All right, then, sorry, bro. Let's move to Ninja Scroll 30, who asks, what are your hopes from Xbox in 24 and for the next 2 generations afterwards? So that's a big leap from 24 to the next 2 next gens. But yeah, let's start with 24. What are your hopes, man? Now that we have had already, and we are only mid of February, we had the developer direct, we had the business update, and we
had meltdowns and everything at the beginning of the year.
It's only February, dude.
Yeah, we haven't even started yet. We've had Xbox's developer direct, which started off on a massive high point. We had Sony's state of play, which was average. Then we had this whole fuss about absolutely nothing ultimately. But it did end up giving us a better indication of where they are going with hardware, with Game Pass, with certain titles going over and their plans going forward. So we've got a good update there. We know that there's 10 games coming out, so or at least 10 games/expansions coming out this year. So my only hope for this year is to be as good as, if not better than 2023, because that was, for a gaming year, for the games we got in 2023, albeit mostly third party, we're banging it out left, right, and center.
Yeah.
As a gaming year, if it can be on par or better than 2023, then I will be absolutely over the moon. And so far, I've played an abundance of awesome games. I'm going to be playing another awesome game in Rebirth very shortly.
The question was, what do you expect from Xbox this year?
From Xbox?
Yeah.
I just want Hellblade to be absolutely awesome, which I'm looking forward to in May. I can't wait to see what they've got lined up in June. They sound very confident on that. I'm looking forward to the hardware reveal in the fall. Yeah. And ultimately see what happens at Gamescom again this year. I want to see them go all out again at Gamescom like they did last year.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I just want Xbox to put out high-quality games. So the games that we know are coming this year, I want Hellblade to hit it out the park and people to enjoy that game. Not just me. I'm looking forward to it regardless. I want Indiana Jones to be a smash hit success.
Yeah.
Be awesome. And I would love for the other titles that release Avowed, etc., to also do well and be awesome. But ultimately, that's all I want. I just want awesome games and to be able to play these awesome games and without hitches, without underlying problems, without these mad narratives going on. I just want people to focus on the games and enjoy the games. That's what I want from Xbox, is when these games come out, we go and enjoy them. We don't talk about the narratives. We don't start fanboying and bitching and shit. Just enjoy gaming. That's what we're here for in the first place. It's why I've got all the consoles, is so I can play the games. I'm not bothered about the console or beside it. I just want to enjoy really good games. And I want Xbox to be a part of that conversation. To go out there, put out smashing titles that people talk about in a positive light, not to have this weird backhanded stuff all the time. That's what I want from Xbox.
Yeah, very similar for me. I want Xbox to actually deliver on the promise that they made, to deliver a consistent output of quality games, with Hellblade coming, with Avowed coming, with Indiana Jones coming, with Stalker 2 coming. We get that this year. So I don't want any delays. And I actually want those games to be as good as we all think they will be. And if that they meet that target and can lay out a proper roadmap for 25, that this is going to continue this consistent quality releases in 25, I'm all good, man. I'm all good. Shout out to Dave Ramos. He puts in the chat, IGN already writing those articles. Apparently IGN wrote an article, Starfield and Indiana Jones are still Xbox exclusives, but Phil Spencer doesn't rule out PS5 releases. There you go.
See, this is what we're talking about.
That's what I said.
This is what we're talking about.
It's gonna be. This is going to be what we will be reading going forward.
Yep.
It's.
Yep.
Anyway, we were at the community questions. Gally the Epirist X writes in, what damage, if any, do you think will be caused to the PlayStation brand by not having any AAA games until at least March 25? If Xbox delivered the same message, how do you think commentators would behave? Is the PlayStation community being let down by Sony?
Yes. Yeah, and I don't. And this is the thing that we say all the time. And this is when you invest in hardware, you have to call out as it is. Now, I'm a PlayStation gamer. I'm an Xbox gamer. I'm a PC gamer. Like, ultimately, if there's an issue, and I need to address it. And ultimately, the issue with Sony is they've got some great lineups of second-party and third-party exclusives. Good for them. But their first party is absolutely dire, and they've been relying far too heavily on Insomniac to carry the burden for too long, pumping out remakes of games that have just come out in order to just fill the gaps. It's not what I want. I've played The Last of Us, where I want to play it again. Played The Last of Us Part 2. I don't need another version of it. I've played, why do I need reversions of these games that have only just come out? These aren't things that people should be hyped about and should be shouting from the rooftops.
I do agree.
You should be demanding better. And ultimately, Sony are not giving you what you've purchased your console for. You purchased your console because ultimately, especially these guys that are tuning in here, what we class as the hardcore, the people on social media talking about video games all the time and consoles all the time, you're the hardcore gamer. Because the casuals aren't sitting here on Twitter and on social media talking about video games all day, every day. The casuals are out in the pub having a pint and occasionally come home to play Madden or FIFA or Call of Duty. And they do that maybe an hour every night or an hour every other night. And that's it. That's what the casuals do. They don't care about this. As the hardcore, you want to be asking the person you've invested your money in, why aren't you giving me first-party titles for the last 2 years? There's been no announcements of any first-party titles for 2 years. The last one you got was Spider-Man 2, and that was announced years ago.
Yeah.
And then the next one we know of is Wolverine, and that's potentially 25, 26.
26.
So what's happening? What is happening, and why aren't people actually? Why aren't the media calling this out?
For two reasons, bro.
Because
there are two reasons for that.
Yeah.
The first is, Sony doesn't have the same track record as Xbox.
Mhm.
They have been up until this point. They have been relatively consistent with their game releases. They had stronger and weaker years. Yeah, last year was definitely a weaker year. With only basically Spider-Man 2 as a first-party title, and they still have exclusives this year. It's all not first-party, but they still have Helldivers. They have Final Fantasy. They have Rise of Ronin. They have Stellar Blade. They have these exclusives. Still, something you can't play anywhere else. So it really doesn't really matter whether it's first party or not. To me, it does. Yes, I feel like it's not. None of these games are outside of Final Fantasy, which I'm super excited. But we know that this is coming 3 months later, also to PC or so. The thing is, we want Ghost of Tsushima 2. We want the next Naughty Dog game or the next Bend Studio game, and we don't know that. I feel like, yes, they are letting them down. But the media, besides them, we know the bias towards PlayStation anyway, but the media don't pick it up because they have been very consistent in their game releases in past years. They still have exclusive this year's, and so that's why no one is giving them the same crap like they give usually Xbox.
My only issue with it though is that you have to, and this is where the media need to segment it, because you can't praise them in one and criticize them in the other, and the media don't do that. You can praise the fact that they've got exclusives and still a reason to pick up the console because they've went out and invested in second party and third party. But you can also criticize the fact that their first party output has been dire and is continuing to be dire, and it needs to be addressed. Like you can both can be correct, both can be true, and that is the case for PlayStation. Their first party output is dire, but their second party and third party output is great, and it's keeping them going. The only reason their first party output has done well this generation is thanks to Insomniac.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for Insomniac, they'd be up shit's creek, because they've had out of remakes and remasters.
Yeah, well, they did have God of War, they did have Horizon Forbidden West, they did have Ratchet and Clank.
Cross-platform.
Well,
this is the thing.
Everything is going cross-platform now. Yeah.
At the beginning,
yeah. None of them were day and date.
Cross-gen, not cross-platform. Cross-gen.
Cross-gen. Okay.
It was me that said that originally, but you know what I mean? Like, that was the beginning of the gen. These were games that were originally slated, and especially again, this marketing thing.
Again, they released those games. I'm also not happy that they did the fifth remake and remaster of Last of Us and so on. But they also had these other games.
Basically, they didn't have.
Listen, they never had a year like Xbox with 2022. They never had that. Period.
Yeah, but they didn't hit any. I mean, this year could be it, though.
It could be it. Absolutely. But up until this point, they didn't have something like that ever before. So, and they have released.
My thing is PlayStation have set their own standards, so the media need to keep them to those standards. They've set the thing where they've hit X, Y, and Z. You don't let them fall below that. That's what you've achieved. That's what you've set out. This is how good you've been. Why have the standards fallen?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more there.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's what we want, because again, we want both platforms to be performing. I don't want after Rebirth to have nothing that I'm interested in playing. I don't want only to be two hack and slash games. Like Rise of the Ronin and
Stellar Blade
aren't for me. They're not.
Well,
they're going to be
Stellar
great
Blade
games.
Stellar Blade maybe, but it really depends on when it will actually come out, because that's the thing. If it comes out at the time where I think it will come out, there will be tons of other games. Yeah, then it will go up against the Stalker and the Avowed and then Indiana Jones, and I don't see me then turning on the PlayStation and spending all that money on a game when I could also be playing Avowed and Stalker and all those and Indiana Jones for basically free. You know, that's the thing. All right, Dutch. Last question of the day. Happy Cloud Gamer writes in. Cloud gaming technology should be in focus. We do know GeForce and Microsoft partnership to make a supercomputer. So with GeForce Now is at the moment the best place to play Xbox games. 4K 60, 120 frames per second. So do we expect server blade upgrades? And is the FTC the reason it's not done already? Listen, this has nothing to do with that. Xbox and GeForce are going to very different, actually very similar. They simply put their hardware in the servers. And as long as Xbox doesn't have, what you have on the Xbox side of things is they don't run a PC in the cloud. They run Xbox consoles. They run Xbox Series X. So as long as we don't have a console out there, I don't think that they will do an upgrade for the console blades. The
only reason
cloud
they use is for
server
the cloud.
blades. I mean.
So, and the only reason they use this for the cloud, and ultimately, even next generation, they're not going to upgrade it because cloud-wise, you can just do whatever. It doesn't require ultimate power to stream the games. So the Series X server blades are going to be fine for the next gen as well.
I'm not sure about that because at the end of the day, it really depends. If you have next gen exclusives that cannot run on the last gen hardware, you won't be able to stream it. I think they will do an upgrade there. I could even see them go away from that approach that they will like bring or put consoles as server blades in there, because it really limits them. It sets them up for however long a generation is 6-8 years. To only have that power available. And he's got a point. Yeah, we still don't have 4K. We don't have 60 FPS or 120 frames. And with GeForce Now, you get that. Yeah, because they put in the 4090s in their server racks. And then you get those.
Another issue with that is it did cause an issue with having less consoles available to sell because they were using Series X's or upgrading the server blades to Series X's, which also caused a bit of a backlog and a bit of an issue with getting Series X's to people around launch time. Yeah. So it had that weird knock-on effect where not only were they short in production, but they were also upgrading the server blades to Series X's. Yeah. So you were using a lot of those things that you should have been getting at the consumers for the server blades, as opposed to giving them to the consumers. And this is another issue. So I agree on that front. Ultimately, they should just use PC server blades for the cloud, as opposed to Xboxes. It would solve issues. It would solve many issues.
Absolutely. All right, Dutch. Let us bring this podcast to an end. It has been an absolute blast as always. Something special with the business update today, but a great discussion out of it. I want to say a big thank you for everyone who tuned in here today. We super appreciate you guys spending the time with us. Also, big thank you for all the super chats that came in. We super appreciate those. And Dutch, let everyone know where they can find you, what you've coming up, man.
Definitely. Again, massive thank you to everybody who tuned in, all the super chats as well from my end, and thank you to the ILP for sending over all their awesome audience. Much appreciated, and thank you everybody for sitting around in the awesome chats that are going on in the chat as well. There's a lot of good comments and a lot of good, very well behaved chat as well. So appreciate that as well. There's no fanboyism. It's all just good general chat about gaming and what we spoke about today. So appreciate that. Much appreciated. On that front, of course, everybody knows I'm deep into getting to work on the Indie Showcase. So every week I'm doing even more for that to make sure the Indie Showcase is ready for this April. Working with developers and platform holders and publishers and things on getting games ready to show off there. But I'm also going to be streaming games as usual. So at the moment, I'm streaming Alan Wake 2. So you can find me streaming Alan Wake 2 on the channel as well at the moment. And then we will be ultimately gearing up to start streaming Rebirth when that comes out. But yeah, keep an eye out. There's going to be lots of stuff happening on the channel over the coming weeks. Appreciate all the new subs. And of course, everybody in Boxy's chat as well on the world of gaming. Always appreciate you guys. You've been fantastic as always. But yeah, you can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch as usual, or Wondering Dutch X on Twitter. So thanks, and see you all soon.
All right. Good stuff. So yeah, again, thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, you're right. Shout out to the Iron Lords and that awesome community as well. We will be back next Thursday, usual time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Europe, or 7 p.m. UK time. And other than that, I'm going to play a lot more Banisher over the weekend. I cannot wait. But yeah, I see you guys soon, and don't forget to game on.